Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable, see playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 3681, The Smart Monkey Spirit King. The Monkey Spirit King had no idea what was happening in real life. But with his limited perception, he could still tell the good from the bad. Anyone would regret wanting to hurt him while trying to wake him up. The 13-teeth necklace floated through the dream smoothly. This time, the Monkey Spirit King didn't dodge anymore. Instead, he walked towards it and let it rest around his neck. As it did, the dream started to break with cracks growing from its edges. It was like a huge mirror being smashed by a strong force. The dream that trapped the Monkey Spirit King for more than 1,000 chaotic eras was finally destroyed. The Monkey Spirit King's eyelids moved as he struggled to open them. The Monkey Masters noticed and rushed towards him one after another. They stood on the water and stared at him with excitement. The moment his eyes opened, Manuel had led all the Monkey Masters to kneel on the water. "Greetings, my king," they shouted as they welcomed the Monkey Spirit King. Their voices echoed throughout the whole Night View Island. "You have fallen asleep for more than 1,000 chaotic eras. I felt so sorry that I couldn't wake you up," Manuel said. The Monkey Spirit King sat straight and looked around the central lake as if he didn't hear what Manuel had said. For over 1,000 chaotic eras, he had stayed motionless in the Ghost Mountain. Now he felt like a prisoner released from prison, curious about everything outside. Splash! He suddenly stood from the water, carrying his huge body. He then leapt towards the top of a mountain, which only appeared as a small hill for his size. Perhaps it was because he was too excited that he jumped high once more. The power of the Monkey Spirit King's feet caused the small hill to crumble into thousands of pieces. "My king, stop doing that," Manuel frighteningly warned as he saw the Monkey Spirit King flying into the air. The sky above the Night View Island was covered with void dust. If the Monkey Spirit King reached the void dust, he would be devoured. However, it was too late. The Monkey Spirit King had flown upward, causing his head to be eroded by the void dust. Sizzle, 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 the void dust quickly found its way to also devour his entire body. Surprised, the Monkey Spirit King fell, his feet stepping heavily on the Night View Island. Boom! The whole Night View Island shook at the impact that was almost the magnitude of an earthquake. Since the Monkey Spirit King had awakened, being devoured by the void dust wasn't a big deal. He could still be revived in the Ghost Mountain. "Manuel, what happened before I woke up?" asked the Monkey Spirit King. He encountered a huge threat in his dream and he had to investigate it. Manuel went forward and told the Monkey Spirit King what had recently happened to the Ghost Mountain. The Monkey Spirit King's eyes flared with resentment when he learned that Sewell had done all those things. In his dream, he had already judged that it was the doing of the Snake Spirit sect. Now that he confirmed, he seethed with anger. "The corporeal body that I had been proud of has been destroyed, and they still want to take away my current body as a treacherous being. They are going too far," the Monkey Spirit King roared. Manuel looked at him calmly. His long slumber has not seemed to change his temperament at all, Manuel thought. After the Monkey Spirit King had calmed down, Manuel revealed, "You escaped from harm and have finally awakened, but it was not because of us." "What? Then who could it be?" the Monkey Spirit King asked with surprise in his eyes. "The Monkey Masters were the most powerful soldiers under his command. Was there anyone else stronger than Manuel?" "It's those humans," answered Manuel as he pointed to them. "They not only stopped Sewell from taking you away but also repaired the 13-teeth necklace." "Humans?" The Monkey Spirit King directed his eyes towards them and asked, "Are they the descendants of human spirits?" "They have a great connection with human spirits. They are considered human spirits born in the secondary world," replied Manuel. "Many human spirits, snake spirits, monkey spirits, and bird spirits were born in the secondary worlds." "Wait," the Monkey Spirit King paused. "You mean these humans have repaired the 13-teeth necklace?" he repeated. The 13-teeth necklace had already run out of its bloodline power. How did it regain the bloodline power? The Monkey Spirit King got immersed in the joy of awakening that he did not realize it. Now that he deeply thought about it, he was startled. The only way to repair the 13-teeth necklace was to use the ancestry-level bloodline. Even if he brought the 13-teeth necklace to the eternal divine courtyard, it would be difficult to repair it. Then how did they repair the wolf teeth in the Night View Island? It was also impossible. The monkey spirit king was convinced that the 13-teeth necklace on his neck was not fake. That was why his face was painted with utmost shock. The human race stood on another mountain peak. They quietly observed what was happening. They saw the monkey spirit king's face clearly as he conversed with Manuel. The primeval lord of heaven and the snake goddess analyzed the possible reactions and results, and they presumed that the situation was just fine. The monkey spirit king was bold and generous. They believed that he was not willful nor cruel. They discussed in low voices and the primeval lord of heaven already had an explanation in mind. However, the monkey spirit king was much more sensitive than the primeval lord of heaven had imagined. He quickly noticed Zen, who was standing at the back of the crowd. He stretched out a finger and pointed at Zen. "Come here," he ordered. Zen wasn't surprised at this. He was sure that the monkey spirit king would investigate the repair of the wolf teeth, yet he did not expect to be noticed only at a glance. Approaching the monkey spirit king, Zen bowed to him with clasped hands. The monkey spirit king looked at him with a grin across his face, while Manuel and the others were puzzled by what they saw. They knew that the one who had saved the monkey spirit king was Fuxi, and the one who had repaired the wolf teeth was the primeval lord of heaven. It was none of Zen's business. This young man did not come from the ghost mountain. He came from the outside not long ago. "Was it you who helped me wake up?" asked the monkey spirit king. Zen shook his head. "It wasn't just me. We worked together to wake you up." The monkey spirit king stared at Zen with great interest. "But they don't have the specific bloodline. What surprises me more is that it can only be kept in the sacred cup. Why could you use it? How did you do it?" he asked curiously. Manuel and the others all looked at Zen in disbelief as they heard the monkey spirit king's words. The only bloodline that had to be kept in the sacred cup was the ancestry-level bloodline. According to the monkey spirit king, Zen had the ancestry-level bloodline in his body. They suspected that the monkey spirit king could have made a mistake. Maybe he just talked nonsense. After all, it was impossible to inherit the ancestry-level bloodline. Everyone in the Four Spirits sect was informed of this fact. Some people speculated that the ancestry-level bloodline could be replenished and there was a slight possibility of inheriting it, but it was impossible for even half of the light columns to light up. That legend was never real in the long history of the main world. Chapter 3682, One Goal. Now, the monkey masters saw the legend unfold in the chaos, and it made them uneasy. If the main world were compared to a huge world, the chaos would just be a small puddle. So a human who came from the puddle inherited the ancestry-level bloodline. It seemed like a joke. Meanwhile, the monkey spirit king waited patiently for Zen to speak. This was surprising, especially because among the four leaders of the Four Spirits sect, he was the most impatient and innocent one. When the Four Spirits sect attacked their enemies on the edge of the main world, he fought hundreds of battles and took thousands of lives. All of this was just to save a monkey master who was not even important to the monkey spirit sect. Being imprisoned in the dream for more than 1,000 chaotic eras, he reflected on everything he had done. If he were more cautious and less naive, would things have ended differently? He did not know how many times he had this thought. Was it a million times? Or did it go over 100 million times? When he realized that Zen had the ancestry-level bloodline in his body, he was shocked but did his best to maintain a calm expression. "I don't know. The eternal divine courtyard was already deserted by the time I arrived. When I entered the sacred cup, the light columns lit up." Zen replied genuinely. The eternal divine courtyard was built by the Four Spirits sect. It seemed that the monkey spirit king knew more about the ancestry-level bloodline than Zen ever did. Zen could no longer hide from him, so he decided it was best to answer honestly. Moreover, it was a good step to get the monkey spirit king on his side. "Light columns? How many would you say lit up?" the monkey spirit king asked patiently. "If I recall correctly, it was all of them," replied Zen. The jaws of Manuel, Hagar, Tirog and Nerus dropped down in awe. Though they wanted to react, all of them were speechless. Meanwhile, the expression of the monkey spirit king was hard to read. He mastered the art of keeping still, and could probably do so even if the whole world collapsed right in front of him. Even when the rest gasped, his expression never changed. "Why all?" asked the monkey spirit king. This didn't make any sense. Mere talent was not a reason, either. Zen shook his head in confusion. I don't know. 187 light columns had risen. At that time, he was completely immersed in the ancestry-level bloodline, so he paid no attention to the outside world. The moment he woke up, he saw that the light columns below the sacred cup were all lit up. The monkey spirit king saw Zen's sincere eyes and felt a little dubious. However, it was meaningless to dwell on it now. This is incredible. The monkey spirit king raised his hands in the air. How should I repay you for waking me up? In this world, returning a favor was a high honor. Even if Manuel and the others didn't point it out, the monkey spirit king could tell that Zen had intentions to be fulfilled. Well, Zen shrugged his shoulders and turned towards the primeval Lord of Heaven. It was actually the primeval Lord of Heaven who helped you wake up, so. But I am asking you. The monkey spirit king didn't let him finish. Because the primeval Lord of Heaven was the leader of the human heroes, Zen naturally asked him for opinions. Now that Zen had to make his own decision, he grew uneasy. After a few deep breaths, he collected himself and continued to speak. I want a way to protect the chaos so that it won't come to an end and so the finale way can be achieved, Zen requested. He figured it was a good opportunity to get ahead on his plans. From the divine land to the source world, Zen was always on the move. The closer he got to the truth, the more lost he became. In the beginning, he was not at all interested in the internal strife of the Four Spirits sect or the previous human civilization. However, what unfolded felt like a rope that dragged him to the other shore, the Three Purities stage, and the Night View Island inch by inch. The finale way, is that to prevent the chaos from disorder? The monkey spirit king asked with concern. Zen nodded. Well, it's not a difficult thing you ask for, the monkey spirit king said. This was too easy for him. After all, the Four Spirits sect built many worlds which served just as their energy pools. The finale way that Zen mentioned was a method to stop the operation of a pool. When some creatures from the secondary worlds had the ancestry-level bloodline and obtained positions in the Four Spirits sect, they occasionally asked to halt the energy pools they came from. This way, the worlds within the energy pools never experienced chaos or destruction again. However, this also meant they would not produce any new energy. It may not seem difficult to you, but the Snake Spirit sect is on the opposite side of us, said Zen. Back then, to prevent the completion of the finale way, the Element Spirit civilization had to hide some other shore tokens. This was done without the Snake Spirit sect. Now, with the intervention of the Snake Spirit sect, the chaos might not be as simple as it once was. Completing the finale way could be unimaginably difficult. Would you want me to help you deal with the Snake Spirit sect? The Monkey Spirit King asked. Yes, actually, Zen nodded again. Just then, the Monkey Spirit King zoned out and got lost in thought. He reminisced about his past. It was because of the Snake Spirit King that he ended up this way. Within the long years he spent in the dream, he imagined chopping Cornelius up into pieces. Since then, he swore to himself that Cornelius would pay for what he had done. Count me in, the Monkey Spirit King smiled. When Zen heard this, his nerves finally relaxed. He was no longer jittery. Since they'd entered the Three Purities stage, they had been running away non-stop. Now, they finally found the human heroes on the Night View Island. However, they didn't expect that the Snake Spirit sect was behind the Element Spirit civilization. Fortunately, the Monkey Spirit King was on their side. Otherwise, they would never have exited the Night View Island. Thank you so much, Zen said and bowed before the Monkey Spirit King. The Monkey Spirit King smiled faintly. Follow me. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and motioned for Zen to stand on his palm. Once Zen stood securely, he flew towards the Ghost Mountain. As they approached, Zen could easily see that the Ghost Mountain was still under repair. The Monkey Spirit King had created a huge, gaping crack in the center of the mountain, one that would be difficult to repair in a short time. I agree to this because we have the same goal, the Monkey Spirit King explained. The Snake Spirit sect is my enemy. Is this because the Snake Masters want to take away your body? Zen asked. No, the Monkey Spirit King shook his head and pointed towards the Ghost Mountain. Do you know why so many treacherous beings exist in the Ghost Mountain? Zen nodded, having already discussed this with the others. They were not actually treacherous beings, but living creatures from the main world, he noted. Right, back then, I stored creatures in the Ghost Mountain so that the myriad creatures of the main world had chances to survive. The Monkey Spirit King paused and sighed before continuing, but Cornelius was just too scheming. Because of him, I have lost my physical body, and so have the monkey spirits. It came to a point that even the creatures in the Ghost Mountain have become treacherous beings themselves. Chapter 3683, Replenish. Upon hearing what the Monkey Spirit King said, Zen became a bit confused. He furrowed his brows in confusion. I thought the Four Spirits sect was invincible in the main world. If it were, why did you hide in the chaos? According to the Monkey Spirit King's words, Zen suspected that there might have been some sort of crisis in the main world. Before the said crisis came, the Monkey Spirit King realized he and his subordinates couldn't survive it. This left him with no choice. He had to retreat with the Monkey Spirit sect into another world until it was safe for them to come back. They did all they could before they went into hiding. One of the projects they did before leaving was the Ghost Mountain, which they built to thrust out all sorts of creatures from the main world. But who or what was threatening enough to cause the Four Spirits sect to act in this manner? Who or what held that much power? The Monkey Spirit King let out a loud huff, almost as if he did not want to answer Zen's question. A disaster, he said, deciding to reveal the truth. A great disaster happened. What disaster? Zen asked. Under his breath, the Monkey Spirit King replied to him with something in Sanskrit, his voice fluctuating in a rhythmic pattern. It is, the Monkey Spirit King paused, trying to find the accurate words to fit his description. It is a type of calamity. At least that is how we refer to it in the main world. I do not know how to explain what it is in your language, he admitted. Zen said, lowering his head in careful thought. For a short while, he seemed to be meditating, and then he slowly raised his head to address the Monkey Spirit King. The Sanskrit words you said mean the space and time calamity, right? A calamity that crosses space and time, he said. When the Monkey Spirit King heard this, he snapped his head towards Zen's direction, looking at him with a confused yet curious expression. In his position as a leader of the Four Spirits sect, he had had several odd encounters. Because of this, it was very difficult to surprise him, but Zen managed to do so twice in a row. Without the aid of the Four Spirits sect, he knew people from the secondary worlds like Zen were not literate in Sanskrit, but somehow, he was able to understand him. Young man, the Monkey Spirit King said, you are a creature from the chaos, aren't you? Zen nodded his head in response. How then are you able to understand Sanskrit? The Monkey Spirit King followed up. Well, Zen replied, for starters, I do not understand Sanskrit, at least not with my own abilities. It is being translated to me in the language I speak. Shortly after he said this, he bowed his head again, meditating. He called onto the Heavenly Obsession Civilization, kindly requesting it to decipher the rest of the Monkey Spirit King's words. This piqued the curiosity of the Monkey Spirit King. How exactly is it being translated to you? He asked, interest evident in his tone. Zen smiled softly. Well, he began. He did not expect the Monkey Spirit King to ask about his mental translation process, what more be interested in it. Despite this, he began to explain to the Monkey Spirit King how it worked, going into as much detail as possible to avoid any cause of confusion. As soon as he finished, the Monkey Spirit King flashed him a big grin. For the first time, he found out that the secondary world had its share of intelligence, and that it had its method of calculation and translation. He made a mental note that if he had an opportunity, he would go to the chaos to experience it for himself. Putting these thoughts aside, the Monkey Spirit King readied himself to discuss the subject in depth. He took a large breath then began to speak. Although citizens from this secondary world refer to it as the space and time calamity, this, space and time, is far different from the one you are acquainted with. Space and time in the secondary world are completely different from the ones in the main world. Those who do not inhabit the latter are unable to fully grasp its scope, therefore, they are unable to understand the severity of the disaster. This is why I brought the Monkey Spirit sect to Ghost Mountain. We needed to avoid the damage it was to bring. Zen stayed silent, egging the Monkey Spirit King to go on. Even though this was all happening within the Monkey Spirit sect, he knew human spirits were also involved, which meant he had to pay attention very closely. Adding to this was the fact he, out of everyone, had obtained the ancestry-level bloodline. To him, this meant that he was important in the grand scheme of it all, and that not only the chaos was involved. He continued to listen attentively. The space and time calamity has been wreaking its havoc upon the main world for a long time, the Monkey Spirit King said. He turned his eyes upon the starry sky, and continued, the space and time in the chaos are linear, from near to distant, from past to future. But in the main world, they are completely different. Zen knew what the Monkey Spirit King was talking about. He experienced the complexity of space and time himself when he entered the abstruse energy world for the first time. Similar to what the Monkey Spirit King mentioned, he was not able to determine how far he had been pacing or how long he had been staying within its domains. Space and time in the abstruse energy world were far different from the ones he had familiarized himself with. The Monkey Spirit King went on, most of the time, the sequence of space and time in the main world follows a rule, however, now and then, glitches will happen, eventually leading to disasters. He paused, trying to compose himself. Those disasters are very strong enough to devour anything that crosses their paths. Unfortunately, many members of the Four Spirits sect were devoured. But the coverage of the disasters is actually very small. In the past, however, a particular space and time calamity affected a large area, instilling a great deal of panic within the Four Spirits sect. When the Snake Spirit King Cornelius heard of this, he made a judgment. He claimed the space and time calamity would hover over the main world like a dark plague, annihilating those who inhabited it. This caused the Four Spirits sect to worry even more. He also claimed the only way to avoid the destruction was to find solace in the secondary worlds. He explained this by mentioning the difference of space and time between the two kinds of worlds. He said that since space and time of the secondary worlds were different from the main worlds, then they would be safe from the latter's disaster. However, as the Monkey Spirit King was telling this story, he began to feel his blood beginning to boil. That particular space and time calamity, Zen said, did it ever happen? Zen asked. The Monkey Spirit King simply laughed. He laughed not in a way that showed amusement but in a way that warned rage was coming. No, he said, shaking his head. It didn't. That was how I knew it was all orchestrated by Cornelius. That vicious snake set up a trap in the chaos to destroy the Monkey Spirit sect. The Monkey Spirit King growled, his eyes fuming with anger. During the years he was trapped within his dream, he felt his hatred for Cornelius grow more fervent as the days went on. He couldn't deny the fact that the four sects couldn't stand each other. They couldn't get along, but they still managed to respect each other enough as not to cause any major tensions. If there were any sects that bonded well together, it would be the Snake Spirit sect and the Human Spirit sect. At first, the Monkey Spirit King did not doubt that Cornelius had the intention to annihilate his sect. However, the Snake Spirit sect made its first move after the Monkey Spirit sect brought the Ghost Mountain into the chaos. The Monkey Spirit King did all that he could to fight off the attacks, but he could not defeat the treacherous Cornelius, who ended up biting him into a death-like slumber. Even the Monkey Spirit King's nobility was no match for the Snake Spirit King's poison. As the poison entrapped him within his dream, the rest of the monkey spirits were led to death too, having no time to resist. The Monkey Spirit King did not wake up as a treacherous being until now. The sad thing is, I still have no idea what Cornelius' motive for doing all this is, the Monkey Spirit King admitted, bitterness evident in his voice. Before the attacks happened, the Monkey Spirit sect used to be the most powerful sect in the Four Spirits sect in terms of brute strength. However, they were wiped off the face of their world without even knowing why. It was a truth they found hard to face. Do you know what happened to the other three sects? Zen asked. The Monkey Spirit King shook his head. No, I do not, but as I reckon it did not end well for the Bird Spirit King, not even the Human Spirit King. Within the Four Spirit sect, it was the Monkey Spirit sect to be attacked first, and among the four kings, it was the Monkey Spirit King who first bit the dust. Because of this, he had no idea what happened to the main world and the chaos. This left him plenty of room to suspect. After answering Zen's question, he raised his finger to point at the surface of the Ghost Mountain, tapping on it ever so slightly. By the touch of his skin, a huge door emerged from the mountain. He then stepped inside the door with Zen still on his palm. The upper half of the Ghost Mountain was reserved for the Monkey Spirit King, which was the space large enough to accommodate someone of his stature. After entering the mountain, the Monkey Spirit King gently placed Zen on the ground. He then took off the 13-teeth necklace from his broad neck. With a slight wave of his hand, the necklace began to tremble. After a few seconds, 13 bloodline powers from the necklace began to release their auras. Look here, the Monkey Spirit King said, calling Zen's attention. These 13 bloodline powers all came from the ancestry-level bloodline. However, there are still 9 wolf teeth which need revitalizing. Now, you have the ancestry-level bloodline with you. Tell me, can you replenish the 9 wolf teeth? As soon as he said this, the Monkey Spirit King tapped the ground with his hand, as if he were asking it to do something. Soon enough, the ground answered, caving in to reveal the 9 wolf teeth. This set of teeth could easily be paralleled to those on the necklace, but unlike the latter, these teeth had nothing inside of them. Not everything could bear the power of the ancestry-level bloodline. These 9 wolf teeth once belonged to the most powerful Wolf King in the main world. The Wolf King was more than capable of fighting against all the leaders of the Four Spirit sect. After the Monkey Spirit King had defeated the Wolf King, he pulled out his teeth, all 22 of them. With the ancestry-level bloodline, he was able to obtain 13 bloodline powers. He had brought Zen into the Ghost Mountain because he hoped that Zen would be able to help him obtain new blended bloodlines from the ancestry-level bloodline and injecting them into the 9 wolf teeth. Chapter 3684, The Origin of the Ancestry-Level Bloodline. Zen didn't expect that the Monkey Spirit King would bring him back to the Ghost Mountain because he needed help regarding the wolf teeth. The Monkey Spirit King had just awakened. The wolf teeth were very important to him. If there was only a chance to infuse the bloodline power into them, he would definitely do it. Seeing how Zen personally repaired the 13 wolf teeth, he immediately realized that Zen would be the key. Now that he knew that Zen possessed the ancestry-level bloodline, there was no way that he would let this opportunity slip by. However, after being surprised by the Monkey Spirit King's request, Zen let out a sigh as a slight frown emerged on his face. "I'm afraid I can't do it," Zen finally said. "Why is that?" the Monkey Spirit King asked as his brows furrowed. "The ancestry-level bloodline is not really under my control," Zen tried to explain briefly. He was telling the truth. In fact, he even wanted to ask the Monkey Spirit King on how he could control and use the bloodline. As expected, the Monkey Spirit King didn't believe him right away. "You know, I don't like to force others. So, you can name a higher price." "That won't be a problem," the Monkey Spirit King insisted. "I apologize, but please believe me," Zen said with all sincerity. "I don't know if it just chose me by pure coincidence or not, but right now, it's living inside my body and I can't really control it." About the wolf teeth, the bloodline repaired them on its own. The Monkey Spirit King didn't really want to accept Zen's explanation, but he didn't find any reason for Zen to lie about it. "With that, I am actually hoping if you can give me some advice on how I can properly control the ancestry-level bloodline," Zen added. After all, the Monkey Spirit King was one of the heads of the Four Spirit sect, and also its founder. Naturally, Zen thought that the Monkey Spirit King should know more about the bloodline than him. "Really? How could this happen?" The Monkey Spirit King let out a deep sigh as an obviously disappointed expression revealed on his face. Zen already explained his side of the story. Now it was up to the Monkey Spirit King whether he would believe Zen or not. "Well, let me think about it first." The Monkey Spirit King raised his head and looked at the ceiling of the inner layer of the Ghost Mountain. He tried his best to search his memories regarding the ancestry-level bloodline. Zen just kept silent and waited patiently and expectantly. After a while, the Monkey Spirit King rubbed his chin and said, "Xian was the one who obtained the ancestry-level bloodline. Then, Kincaid studied its abilities, and Cornelius built the eternal divine courtyard afterward. Damn it, I'm the only one who doesn't have anything to do with the ancestry-level bloodline." In the beginning, the 4 sect leaders divided their duties. Xian, the Bird Spirit King, was the one responsible for the exploration of different things. Kincaid, the Human Spirit King, was the smartest, so he was in charge of studying and making researches. Cornelius, the Snake Spirit King, was also very bright, but what he was known for were his resourcefulness and detailed execution. Lastly, the Monkey Spirit King's strength lay in his expertise in dominating battles. The Monkey Masters and the Monkey Spirits didn't possess high intelligence, but they were fearsome fighters. Wherever the Monkey Spirit King led them, they followed suit, and victory was theirs. If new powerful weapons were made in the Four Spirit sect, the Monkey Spirit sect had the liberty to use and try them out first. That said, the leader of the Human Spirit sect, Kincaid, was the one who helped the Monkey Spirit King inject the bloodline powers into the 13-teeth necklace. As Zen heard the Monkey Spirit King's answer, his mouth almost opened wide as he was rendered speechless. It turned out that the Monkey Spirit King actually knew nothing about the ancestry-level bloodline. The omnipotent Monkey Spirit King was apparently the only reckless leader among the 4 heads of the Four Spirit sect. Fortunately, while Zen was still in a daze, the Monkey Spirit King seemed to have remembered something helpful. "I think there are still some documents about the ancestry-level bloodline in the Ghost Mountain." After all, the Four Spirit sect shared important resources and ensured that everyone had a copy. Whenever the Human Spirit sect found something new, they would give a copy to the Monkey Spirit sect. Thus, the Monkey Spirit King knew that they must have some documents regarding the ancestry-level bloodline somewhere in the Ghost Mountain. They just tended to forget because they didn't pay much attention to these documents. The same was true for every member, including Manuel and the other Monkey Masters. Back when the primeval Lord of Heaven was locked up in the Ghost Mountain, he had inquired about the blended bloodlines from Manuel and Tirog. However, they did not remember that the documents related to that topic actually existed. Fortunately, the Monkey Spirit King had a slightly better memory than the Monkey Masters. I see. Then, can I borrow those documents? Zen's eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, sure, said the Monkey Spirit King. If it will help you gain better understanding of the bloodline, I'll be more than willing to lend you those, he added. He had already been skilled at using 13 kinds of bloodline power. Because of that, he could maximize the power of the 13-teeth necklace and release tremendous strength. And if he obtained 22 kinds of bloodline power, he would be able to improve his strength to a whole new level. For that, he was hoping that Zen could control the ancestry-level bloodline and help him. It was like hitting two birds with one stone. Zen was also eager to gain control of the bloodline in his body, so it would be both a win for them. But I'm afraid I won't be able to do it alone. I need 2 other people to help me with this, Zen said. No problem, do what you got to do, the Monkey Spirit King agreed without hesitation. After a while, the Monkey Masters went to the Night View Island to invite the Primeval Lord of Heaven and the Snake Goddess. They were the 2 people in Zen's mind that could greatly help him. As they didn't know why Zen was abruptly summoned to the Ghost Mountain, they naturally looked at him with inquiring eyes. Zen quickly understood the meaning of their stares, so he told them the overview of the Monkey Spirit King's request. As the leader of the Ghost Mountain, the Monkey Spirit King appeared to be very omnipotent in the eyes of the Primeval Lord of Heaven and the Snake Goddess. After all, he was a leader of the Four Spirit sect, the master of everything. That was why when they heard everything that Zen said, they were extremely shocked. Apparently, the strongest being in the Four Spirit sect was the one who didn't know anything about the ancestry-level bloodline. The Primeval Lord of Heaven and the Snake Goddess had mixed feelings about what they heard. Of course, it was a given that they were extremely surprised, but they were also overjoyed because it meant that they had the chance to read the documents about the ancestry-level bloodline. Gaining knowledge from the esteemed Four Spirit sect was something that they would absolutely indulge on. Soon after, several monkey masters had escorted them to the hall at the top floor of the Ghost Mountain. As they entered the hall, they instantly saw that it was covered with thick dust. They could just imagine how many years had passed by without anyone setting foot in that place. Tierog also entered and walked towards the end of the hall. As he gently touched a spot on the wall, a rumbling sound was instantly heard. A rectangular stone coffin surfaced from the wall. Inside it, there were multiple square stone tablets, on which distinct Sanskrit words were engraved. These are the records about the ancestry-level bloodline. Study them for as long as you want. However, don't touch the other stone coffins on the wall, Tierog warned them. They assumed that the history, unique skills, and bloodline theurgies of the Monkey Spirit sect must have been recorded there. Although they were well organized, the Monkey Masters never bothered to take time to read them. The Primeval Lord of Heaven and the Snake Goddess just nodded at Tierog as their eyes focused on the stone tablets in front of them. They had stayed in the Ghost Mountain for a long time, so they now had a good understanding of Sanskrit words. However, they recognized that it would still take them several hours to completely read all the words on the stone tablets. This would make their work both inefficient and inaccurate. This was an important task, so the 2 stared at Zen after they looked at all the stone tablets. Zen quickly knew what they meant. He asked the core of the Heavenly Obsession civilization to decipher the contents on the stone tablets for them. After they were translated, Zen told them the words. According to the records on the stone tablets, Xian managed to obtain the ancestry-level bloodline on one of his explorations. Back then, he had lost his way and went into a time vessel. However, the time and space in the main world were totally different from what Zen and the others knew. Therefore, they weren't able to imagine what the time vessel was like. They could only guess that it was some kind of vessel that was related to time. Then, the records said that the ancestry-level bloodline was obtained in the time vessel. At that time, the Four Spirit sect was already quite influential, but it was far from being able to dominate the main world. However, after they acquired the ancestry-level bloodline, everything changed. The human spirits, bird spirits, snake spirits, and monkey spirits were endowed with all sorts of abilities, and their strength increased at an incredible rate. Realizing that they could obtain more power, Kincaid and Cornelius became greedy and weren't willing to stop at that point. They weren't satisfied with what they had yet, knowing that the energy contained in the ancestry-level bloodline was infinite. Chapter 3685, Records. According to the records, the 4 kings had been on good terms and trusted each other. Any creature in the Four Spirit sect could have a try to obtain the abilities of the ancestry-level bloodline. After the strength of the Four Spirit sect increased, they began to expand and enlarge their scale. Their demand for ancestry-level bloodline also grew in return. However, merging with the ancestry-level bloodline could only be done by a small number of the talents in the Four-Spirit sect. The vast majority of the members tried many times, but they all resulted in failure. However, there was one attempt that marked a turning point: Kincaid's. He had divided the ancestry-level bloodline with a not very complicated method. For experiments, the human spirits captured a large number of snow-white mice with wings called heron mice. These mice were pinned down and forcibly injected with the ancestry-level blood. The energy contained in the ancestry-level bloodline was overwhelming, making it unbearable for the mice. The only consequence for them after absorbing the ancestry-level bloodline was to explode and die. The experiments yielded the same results repeatedly. Fortunately, tens of billions of heron mice thrived in the forest closest to the Four-Spirit sect. The monkey spirits in the monkey spirit sect had the most important task of capturing the mice for decades. Nearly 1 million mice had died from all the experiments when, finally, one of them managed to survive. It wasn't because the mouse was special, but because the ancestry-level bloodline had become tired. In the beginning, both Cornelius and Sheehan believed the power of the ancestry-level bloodline to be inexhaustible, but Kincaid didn't agree. He felt that everything had its limits. Orlando himself was not interested in the mystery of the ancestry-level bloodline. He was also unwilling to learn about it, so he blindly agreed with Kincaid. Only the human spirit sect and the monkey spirit sect supported the research on the ancestry-level bloodline. The bird spirit sect and the snake spirit sect showed no concern with it. When Kincaid injected the ancestry-level bloodline into the body of the heron mouse, he keenly sensed the slight change that occurred in the ancestry-level bloodline. The inexhaustible energy of the ancestry-level bloodline had proved unsuitable for the fusion before. He assumed that this kind of ability of the ancestry-level bloodline could be considered as a kind of poison, the poison of rejection, but the poison had limitations. After causing countless mice's death, its toxicity had weakened. The ancestry-level bloodline finally yielded and successfully merged into the mouse's body. The mouse instantly changed. It started to breathe heavily and moved as if it wanted to break free. It displayed an incredible skill from the ancestry-level bloodline. At that time, whoever could obtain the ability of the ancestry-level bloodline would immediately become a powerhouse. Both the mouse's strength and speed greatly increased. After the experiment, it managed to attack 3 human spirits and killed them all. It planned to escape afterward, but Kincaid came to restrain and take it under his control. Kincaid was overjoyed. He delighted at the thought of his success. The poison of rejection had only been his speculation, yet it proved true. He had proudly created a new bloodline from the mouse. The human spirit sect called this new bloodline the source bloodline. The source bloodline had an ability of the ancestry-level bloodline, but it was incomplete. Some of the source bloodlines had inherited only 1/10 of a single ability, while some had 2/10. Compared to the abilities given by the ancestry-level bloodline, the source bloodlines were not that powerful, but they were highly adaptable. The majority of the spirits in the Four-Spirit sect were able to fuse with this source bloodline. There were only a small number of talented warriors who could merge with the ancestry-level bloodline before. But everyone could now use the ancestry-level bloodline. The members of the Four-Spirit sect shouted and jumped for joy when they found out about the news. However, Kincaid only allowed the members of the monkey spirit sect to fuse with this source bloodline. The primeval Lord of Heaven sighed as he attentively listened. Besides Zen, this must be the core problem. The Four-Spirit sect was an integral whole. It's undeniable that the monkey spirit sect made great contributions, but the fact that Kincaid showed favoritism for this sect would surely bring a conflict, the snake goddess said. The monkey spirit sect's contribution to producing the source bloodline from the ancestry-level bloodline had always been recognized. After all, it was because of their tireless capture of the mice that Kincaid's experiments were pushed through. The bird spirit sect and the snake spirit sect felt angry with the way things turned out. Although they didn't express their emotions at the time, they might in the future. This was one of the matters that affected the harmony of the Four-Spirit sect. They continued to capture a large number of mice even after creating the source bloodline. After the 2 millionth mouse died, Kincaid obtained the second source bloodline as expected. Its ability was completely different from the first one. Then came more and more source bloodlines, which all displayed different abilities. During the process, however, the number of mice in the forest plummeted. Their bones piled up into mountains in the human spirit sect. Although he had acquired many, Kincaid grew dissatisfied with the power of the source bloodlines. It was because the source bloodlines could only release 1/10 or 2/10 of an ability of the ancestry-level bloodline. Their strength wasn't enough. They were simply too weak. To solve this problem, Kincaid gathered the smartest men among the human spirits for a discussion. The sun rose and set for many days, and then they finally came to a conclusion. The mice were naturally weak, which determined their weak abilities even after they'd absorbed source bloodlines. To obtain powerful source bloodlines, they had to use powerful creatures as well. The main world didn't have many powerful creatures, leaving the Four Spirits sect with few choices. They explored and hunted, which led them to several selected targets. Among these were numerous ants of several hundred feet in size and black midges. The Snake Spirit sect and the Bird Spirit sect agreed that capturing these creatures was difficult, but they appreciated the human spirit's efforts and asked their members to join them in working. The division of labor in the Four Spirits sect led to a great improvement in their efficiency. Soon after, the experiments were carried out with the powerful creatures. Everything went smoothly. After about 100,000 ants died, Kincaid once again obtained a much stronger source bloodline. It had possessed 40% of a single ability of the ancestry-level bloodline. Kincaid named it root-level bloodline, and the previous one was named the source-level bloodline. With the popularity of the source-level and the root-level bloodlines in the Four Spirit sect, their strength excelled once again. They were able to produce elites in batches which could only be resisted by very few races in the main world. Even so, Kincaid remained dissatisfied. He aspired to obtain a much stronger bloodline, or better, to figure out a method to directly fuse with the ancestry-level bloodline. However, he had not fulfilled this wish because of the absence of both an extremely powerful and populous race in the main world. Chapter 3686, Bold Conjecture House. The general trend was that the stronger a certain race was, the smaller its number of members would be. The direct opposite also held true. This particular trend could be observed in both the main and secondary worlds. Although Kincaid failed to find a powerful race with enough individuals to serve as subjects for his experiment, he refused to give up. He had sacrificed the heron mice first, to be the specimens on testing the repelling power of the ancestry-level bloodline. When they were all depleted, he had started using different and stronger creatures to further the experiment. However, even with this, the experiment still failed in the end. The main reason was that the repelling power of the ancestry-level bloodline had strange judging criteria. It could only be utilized to a certain type of creature or race. If the experimental subject changed into a totally different one in the middle of the process, the repelling power would recover completely and all of the prior progress would be lost. This strange phenomenon was recorded in detail on the stone tablets. After the attempt of strengthening the root-level bloodlines had failed, Kincaid decided to take a new route and tried to merge different bloodlines this time. As Zen translated the words on the tablets at this point, the primeval Lord of Heaven was greatly surprised. Whoa, so, it turns out that the human spirit king has begun merging bloodlines so much earlier than I did, he said with a trembling smile. The primeval Lord of Heaven had also conducted countless experiments in the Ghost Mountain, and he knew how difficult it really was to merge bloodlines. Well, technically, it was not difficult to simply combine two different kinds of bloodlines. However, soon after they were merged, the abilities of the paired bloodlines would start rejecting each other, causing the energy to be very unstable. Because of this, most blended bloodlines could only exist for a few seconds, while others could last for a couple of hours at most. After experimenting for quite a long time, the primeval Lord of Heaven was successful to maintain several types of blended bloodlines up to a few months before they finally disintegrated. Such bloodlines would be unsuitable to be fused with warriors. However, since the sole purpose of his experiment was only to help awaken the Monkey Spirit King, this drawback could be ignored. When Kincaid was the one performing the experiments, he had much better conditions and resources than the primeval Lord of Heaven. Most people around the primeval Lord of Heaven had only obtained the source-level bloodlines, and only a very few ones had obtained the root-level bloodlines. On the other hand, after Kincaid did a lot of experiments, all kinds of source-level and root-level bloodlines could be found in the Four Spirit sect. Therefore, the human Spirit King had more options to select from compared to the primeval Lord of Heaven. It should have been much easier for him to attain dramatic progress because of his resources. Furthermore, Kincaid didn't carry out the experiments on his own. He should have many capable assistants in the human spirit sect to help him out. After a series of complicated experiments, he had finally created 4 new blended bloodlines. These were the 4 origin-level bloodlines that Zen had witnessed in the Eternal Scroll painting. The origin-level bloodlines were much more superior. Anyone who could fuse with them would instantly be regarded as top-level talents and would be highly valued in the Four Spirits sect. Of course, in addition to these well-known origin-level bloodlines, Kincaid still created other blended bloodlines like them afterward. Their powers were just as extraordinary as the initial ones. However, this time, Kincaid decided to not make them public. Instead, he only applied them to very few people. Among them, the Monkey Spirit King was the one he picked to fuse with the most kinds of bloodlines. The Monkey Spirit King acquired 13 kinds of powerful bloodlines. This is the origin of the 13-teeth necklace, the snake goddess said. I think so, Zen replied. From what we know so far, it seems that there is no special trick in merging bloodlines. Anyone could succeed by trial and error, but of course, one would need several resources to increase the rate of success. They soon learned that the conditions on the Night View Island weren't enough for them to conduct similar experiments. In fact, they realized that even the entire chaos might not have sufficient resources for this. Zen clearly remembered that the source level and root level bloodlines in the Eternal Scroll painting were far from enough. If they wanted to really create blended bloodlines by themselves, they would have to use the ancestry level bloodline itself and start from scratch. However, they all knew that it would take a lot of time to produce viable results. Realizing that this was such an impossible task, they couldn't help but just sigh in frustration. Let's read on the other stone tablets to find out more information, the snake goddess finally suggested. Currently, Zen had already deciphered a total of 6 stone tablets, and there were still a dozen more to go. Look here, there's a signature on this tablet, Zen said as he pointed at the lower corner of the stone tablet. From the ones that Zen had already finished translating, this was the first stone tablet he encountered that contained a signature. What does it say? The primeval Lord of Heaven inquired. Zen slightly tilted his head as if quite confused at the words written. It says Bold Conjecture House, Human Spirit Sect. Bold Conjecture House, the snake goddess repeated with furrowed brows. That's a strange name. They already knew that there were several houses affiliated to the Human Spirit Sect, but this was their first time hearing this one. Well, let me go ask about it first, Zen offered. He walked straight to the door where Tirog was standing guard, looking bored stiff. Master Tirog, Zen greeted as he bowed to him. Tirog had just finished yawning as he cast a nonchalant glance at him and asked, "What is it?" "I just want to ask if you have heard of the Bold Conjecture House of the Human Spirit Sect before," Zen inquired straightforwardly. Tirog lightly scratched his head as if he wasn't sure of what he heard. "What, Bold Con?" Tirog asked in confusion. "Bold Conjecture House," Zen repeated. "What the heck is that name? I don't think I could be of help. There are all kinds of houses in the Human Spirit Sect, and most of them have confusing names like the one you mentioned. I really can't distinguish them," Tirog answered after he thought for a little while. "Oh, all right, thank you anyway," Zen replied in a soft voice. Come on, no wonder these monkey spirits were the first ones to be eliminated by the Snake Spirit Sect, he thought to himself as he returned to the primeval Lord of Heaven and the Snake Goddess. At least for now, they knew who wrote the stone tablets. Since they were the ones who knew so many secrets about the ancestry-level bloodline, Zen surmised that this Bold Conjecture House must have a very high status in the Human Spirit Sect. As he returned, he just shook his head while the other two stared at him. They immediately understood that he didn't get any useful information. With that, Zen just took out the 7th stone tablet and began deciphering it. From the translated inscriptions, it said that with the creation of the origin-level bloodlines, the strength of the 4 spirits sect was greatly enhanced. It was described that each of the 4 origin-level bloodlines was even stronger than a single ability endowed by the ancestry-level bloodline. The only problem was that the 4 origin-level bloodlines required a very high level of comprehension. Many people had dedicated their entire lives to fully comprehend them, but still failed. In the end, they weren't able to fuse with the bloodlines. But they clearly knew that if anyone succeeded in merging with them, they would definitely become invincible in the entire main world. Up to that point, Kincaid's achievement had already been astonishing and incomparable. Although Xian was the one who discovered and brought back the ancestry-level bloodline, Kincaid's progress on its usage was undoubtedly a more brilliant feat. However, even with all those achievements, Kincaid was still dissatisfied. His ultimate goal was to grasp the ancestry-level bloodline itself. For him, it was the most perfect power in the world, and he wouldn't settle for less until he got what he wanted. In his long years in the main world, Kincaid had almost tried all sorts of methods just to study it. He even tried to merge all of the 373 source-level bloodlines in an attempt to create a new ancestry-level bloodline. But in the end, he failed. Zen continued reading the contents of the stone tablet, which almost seemed like diary entries of someone from the Bold Conjecture House. After countless trials, we discovered that the ancestry-level bloodline has a life of its own. We should have noticed that earlier. It's alive and it has its own mind. But still, the real problem is how we could effectively communicate with it. The construction of the eternal divine courtyard was already completed, and Master Cornelius required that the ancestry-level bloodline be stored in the sacred cup. Master Cornelius ordered that no one is allowed to get close to the ancestry-level bloodline if there is no important reason, not even Master Kincaid. Even the members of the Bold Conjecture House are prohibited from entering the eternal divine courtyard. That's just too much. Master Kincaid said that since we couldn't find a better way to produce greater results, we have to use the simplest method. He said that we needed to refine a body that could withstand the overwhelming power of the ancestry-level bloodline. But that's just impossible. I asked Master Kincaid what kind of body would be able to withstand the ancestry-level bloodline. He said that it must be a body that is as strong as the sacred cup. I didn't really get it. Did he mean that we should refine a creature's flesh into metal? At first, I thought that Master Kincaid must have gone crazy. However, the Bold Conjecture House really started achieving this requirement. They did what? Zen's mouth remained open after reading the contents of the stone tablet. As he raised his head and looked at the primeval Lord of Heaven and the Snake Goddess, he saw the same astonishment on their faces. Chapter 3687, A Method. The process Zen went through in order to inherit the ancestry-level bloodline was very abrupt and quite strange. Although he thought himself already quite talented, he knew there was a great gap between him and the human spirits. Judging from the reactions the 4 statues in the eternal divine courtyard had when they saw Zen absorb the ancestry-level bloodline, they were also quite shocked. It was virtually impossible for such a freak like him to exist in this world. The human spirit king, the monkey spirit king, the snake spirit king, the bird spirit king, and all other geniuses had failed to do that, yet a human from a secondary world had achieved such a feat. Coupled with surprise was also a bit of confusion on Zen's part. Was it because his physical body was special? His body was essentially a weapon, but then didn't the 4 spirit sect have skills that enabled them to create anything? Those people created the chaos from which even the metal civilization appeared. It shouldn't be that difficult for them to have forged a body similar or even superior to Zen's. So why in the world did the ancestry-level bloodline favor Zen? It was only when he looked through the human spirit's diary that Zen was able to find some clues. If that is the case, Zen, then I'm afraid your physical body becoming such a weapon is part of someone's plan, the real snake goddess said with a frown. I'm afraid that the Bold Conjecture House had found the solution. Go on and continue reading the diary, the primeval Lord of Heaven urged. Zen decided it best to continue deciphering the contents on the stone tablet. We tried thousands of containers but discovered that the ancestry-level bloodline repelled most of the materials. Even dead wood and soil were rejected. However, we've discovered that if the wood is burnt until it turns into charcoal or if the soil is heated until it becomes solid brick, then the repelling force would disappear. Alvaro went out to the eternal divine courtyard again. He had a fight with the statues that were guarding it. Even if the human spirits, monkey spirits, snake spirits, and bird spirits each have a statue there, they actually follow the snake spirit sect's orders. These damned fellows. They did let him in eventually. Alvaro finally found the reason why we failed. His infinite eyes can see what is normally too far or too little to be seen. According to him, there are very small living creatures in the soil and wood which have gone unnoticed by ordinary people. These creatures are very weak and would promptly die if subjected to the smallest of flames. This way, it was made clear to us that the ancestry-level bloodline repels all living creatures but not dead creatures. Elder Shui forwarded this assumption and hypothesized that there might be a condition for absorbing the ancestry-level bloodline. According to him, it may require a creature that is both alive and dead at the same time. That doesn't make any sense, though. What's dead will remain dead and what is alive shall continue to live until death. How can a creature be both at the same time? Our puppet technique can construct puppets that look and move the exact same way as a living, breathing person, but, at the end of the day, those puppets remain dead things. If we put the ancestry-level bloodline into a puppet's body, it would be as good as pouring it all into the sacred cup. This is not absorbing the ancestry-level bloodline, nor can we use the ancestry-level bloodline. We can also create metal creatures, but when we tried putting the ancestry-level bloodline in them and even in creatures made of other different elements, they'd promptly explode and die. Elder Shui remained persistent and began to teach us lessons again. Master Kincaid even got scolded. He said there were too many unknown and incomprehensible things in the main world, and though the 4 spirit sect was powerful, it was not omniscient. Elder Shui disappeared the next day. He only left a letter behind saying he was going to try and find a solution. That old man is very stubborn. He must have gone to the deep space. There are a lot of strange things up there like the time vessel. The place is simply too dangerous. Master Shirin almost lost his life when he went there. How can Elder Shui dare go there alone? The diary ended there and made no further mention of Elder Shui's fate. Further entries expressed records of dissatisfaction of the bold conjecture house with the snake spirit sect, who began to change the rules of entering the eternal divine courtyard. By their rules, it became increasingly more difficult to gain entry. Shiin had originally taken out the ancestry-level bloodline and made it accessible to everyone in the Four Spirits sect. Unfortunately, after the establishment of the eternal divine courtyard, this open access enjoyed by the sect eventually disappeared. Over time, the ancestry-level bloodline became a sacred relic to the Four Spirits sect and was fiercely guarded and protected. Save for the time when the eternal divine courtyard opened to allow warriors to get some power, it would normally be impossible for anyone to even look at it. A fierce quarrel between Kincaid and Cornelius erupted because of this, but the latter ended up gaining the upper hand. Nobody knew what sort of method Cornelius used to persuade Shiin to agree with him, but the Four Spirit sect eventually gave the eternal divine courtyard supreme power in order to facilitate development for the Four Spirit sect. However, taking control of the eternal divine courtyard, the snake spirit sect were selfish, and they devised a few sketchy rules and left a back door for their sect. Their sketchy rules made it very difficult for human, bird, and monkey spirits to accept the ancestry-level bloodlines test, while their people met no obstructions whatsoever, which only led to Kincaid's growing frustration. Inevitably, an intense conflict broke out. Dissatisfied and frustrated by the current state of things, Kincaid poured his annoyance into his work and soon came up with a method to activate the ancestry-level bloodline. It was a rudimentary method, but he still wanted to try it. Everything was well and good until he was stopped by the entrance and was told that he was forbidden from entering the eternal divine courtyard. In a fit of anger, he smashed the dome and caused some heavy damage onto the courtyard. Elite members of the snake spirit sect all came and surrounded him. Cornelius was also there and criticized Kincaid for what he had done. Afraid of the brewing fight between the two kings, Orlando immediately rushed over. Meanwhile, the monkey spirit king unconditionally stood by the human spirit's side. It was after the monkey spirit king involved himself that a gap in strength was observed. Cornelius had no choice but to concede and allow Kincaid to continue his experiment. However, the former made it clear that this was the only exception and that it wasn't a privilege that would be granted to him ever again. That made Kincaid unhappy. However, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and agree. Nobody was exempt from the rules, not even the four kings. Unfortunately, despite all the ruckus he caused to touch the ancestry-level bloodline, Kincaid's method ultimately failed. The ancestry-level bloodline showed no reaction at all. This result confused Kincaid, since he was quite sure that his method would have been very effective. How could the ancestry-level bloodline show no reaction at all? Was it perhaps resistant to Kincaid? That seemed to be the only logical explanation. Since magical blood was sentient, it could reject external interference. Kincaid's method was recorded on number 17 stone tablet. Zen's eyes lit up when he read this. Number 17 stone tablet, he cried out. He had deciphered 16 stone tablets and number 17 stone tablet was up next. This tablet contained Kincaid's method, and the real primeval Lord of Heaven and Snake Goddess became extremely interested when they realized this. Soon enough, Zen picked up the tablet. This one was very different from the ones he held before. There were only 4 Sanskrit words on the tablet and they glowed a dull blue. Zen also noticed that the way these words were written was very strange, with extremely thin lines twisted together. The core of heavenly obsession civilization deciphered the tablet for him, and the primeval Lord of Heaven and Snake Goddess patiently waited for him to speak. After a minute or so, Zen pursed his lips. They're undecipherable. The core of heavenly obsession civilization relied on a large amount of calculation to decipher words. However, the problem was that these 4 Sanskrit words were in a form that it had never seen before, so it had no idea how to calculate it. Chapter 3688, Coral Blood Sword. Since the core of heavenly obsession civilization couldn't decipher the Sanskrit words on the 17th stone tablet, they had no choice but to leave it to the monkey masters. Although there was little hope, Zen still decided to take the stone tablet to them to ask. Upon receiving the stone tablet from Zen, Tirog didn't show any impatience. He looked it over for a bit before declaring, "These are not Sanskrit words." "Not Sanskrit words?" Zen echoed, raising his eyebrows slightly. Earlier, the records on the stone tablets Zen read were all written in Sanskrit. Could there possibly be another language in the Four Spirits sect? Tirog held up the stone tablet. It's a blood-controlling method, he said. Look at these curved lines. Don't you think they look like a monkey? Zen, the real primeval Lord of Heaven and the real snake goddess all turned their gazes to the stone tablet to study it once more. Now that Tirog pointed it out, they could vaguely make out a figure. Although these lines were messy, they were actually very similar to the meridians in one's body. I think it looks more like a human, the primeval Lord of Heaven couldn't help but speak up. Monkey, Tirog snapped decisively, casting him a glare. One of the reasons why the human spirit sect and the monkey spirit sect were very close to each other was that their bodies were similar in form. Thus, if the human spirits could use the methods created by Kincaid, the monkey spirits wouldn't have any problem performing the same. However, it was a different story for the bird and snake spirits. How does one use this blood-controlling method? Zen cleared his throat. Just operate according to the meridians on the pattern. These 4 pictures are 4 small circulations, and they form one big circulation. As Tirog spoke, his fingers were tracing the lines on the stone tablet. Suddenly, his expression changed. This operation method is so strange. Does this really have anything to do with the ancestry-level bloodline? In fact, the blood-controlling method created by Kincaid was no secret in the Four-Spirit sect. However, the monkey masters had no interest in matters outside their sect. While they had great talent in cultivation, they only really cared about the methods they could make use of. If one couldn't merge with the ancestry-level bloodline, the blood-controlling method was deemed useless to them, so the monkey masters didn't concern themselves with it. However, what appeared to be a useless waste to the monkey masters turned out to be extremely important to Zen. Talk about one man's trash being another one's treasure. The real snake goddess suddenly spoke up. Back then, when no one could absorb the ancestry-level bloodline, what was the point of creating this blood-controlling method? Puppets, Tirog answered gravely. I remember, some people from the human spirit sect had asked us to collect all kinds of materials to make puppets. The blood-controlling method wasn't used on living beings. They wanted to use it on puppets. His eyes narrowed, but it should have failed. At that time, the human spirit sect had used all the methods they could think of. However, puppets weren't living things, after all. So the blood-controlling method didn't work on them. As Tirog trailed off, he shifted his gaze towards Zen. He suddenly clapped his hands and said excitedly, since this blood-controlling method didn't work on puppets, how about we try using it on you? Actually, this thought had crossed the minds of Zen, the primeval Lord of Heaven and the snake goddess earlier. I'll try it now, Zen said decidedly. Previously, all the miracles that happened to Zen's body were thanks to the ancestry-level bloodline. However, the ancestry-level bloodline was not under Zen's control, and sometimes, it had a mind of its own. If this blood-controlling method actually worked, then Zen could say he stumbled upon the jackpot of methods. Tirog didn't try to stop Zen. In fact, the monkey spirit king was hoping Zen would find a solution here. Zen sat cross-legged and closed his eyes to concentrate. Then, an invisible force lifted the stone tablet and it floated in front of him. Previously, Zen had tried various ways to control the ancestry-level bloodline, but none of them worked. After so many failed attempts, he didn't know what to expect this time. Zen shoved his doubts to the back of his mind as he envisioned the pattern of meridians in the first small circulation. The pattern started from the right shoulder and terminated in the left leg. Once he could clearly picture the pattern of meridians, he manipulated his blood to flow along the pattern. Strangely enough, this time, the originally uncontrollable ancestry-level bloodline followed meekly. The ancestry-level bloodline was like a docile kitten as it flowed in the direction that Zen guided. Even the real primeval Lord of Heaven, the real snake goddess, and Tirog, who were not far away, sensed that something was out of the norm. The ancestry-level bloodline might be gentle and obedient now, but they all knew that things could change in the blink of an eye. This pattern was very complicated, and the lines contained rules that Zen found difficult to read. As he guided his blood, Zen quietly marveled at the intricacy of the pattern. If it was his own bloodline, he would be able to explore it bit by bit as he slowly took control of it. And it would not be surprising that he would finally master the blood-controlling method. However, Kincaid had never absorbed the ancestry-level bloodline. Zen didn't know how he had drawn these lines. What kind of talent it required to enable him to complete such work. About a quarter of an hour later, Zen carefully neared finishing the first small circulation. The moment he completed it, he suddenly felt a chill rushing up from his meridians. Frowning, he then felt something stirring in his mind. That thing was a square, with a simple rune wrapped in the middle. The rune was in the form of a ring hidden in the middle of a triangle. What's this? It didn't look like Sanskrit, neither did it look like it was in any language he knew. So far, it seemed as though Zen had never come across such a rune before. The second small circulation begins. Zen decided to shrug it off and proceeded to cultivate the second small circulation. Another quarter of an hour later, Zen finished the second small circulation and another square appeared in Zen's mind. It was also a rune wrapped in a square, but this time, this square joined the first square, like two puzzle pieces connecting. Zen ignored this and began to cultivate the third small circulation, and then later, the fourth one. After he finished the large circulation in this blood-controlling method, the four squares that formed in Zen's mind pieced together in sequence to form one large square. The four patterns in the square were also perfectly connected, like a completed puzzle. When Zen tried to use his consciousness to explore the big square, a sense of familiarity arose, as though he somehow obtained the ability to understand the runes. All of a sudden, his eyes popped wide open, and his hands trembled violently. "What's wrong, Zen?" the real snake goddess asked with concern. "Are you all right?" the primeval lord of heaven piped in. Meanwhile, Tirog glanced at Zen indifferently. The monkey spirit king was very interested in the abilities of the ancestry-level bloodline, but these monkey masters thought differently. It was because of the ancestry-level bloodline that the four-spirit sect was reduced to this situation. In the eyes of the monkey masters, this thing was the source of their downfall, and would not bring any benefits to the monkey spirit sect. Thus, they looked at it with disdain. "I'm fine," Zen said shakily. Wincing slightly, he opened his right hand, palm facing up. His palm began to crack, and traces of bright red blood began to fill the palm. Raising his hand gently to study it, thin blood streaks painted his palm, like an intricate coral reef. Then, a thought crossed Zen's mind. Like lightning, the streaks of blood responded immediately. In the blink of an eye, the blood streaks moved around to form the shape of a blood sword, which was exactly what Zen had been thinking. Because it was woven from threads of blood, the blood sword was filled with pulsating coral branches. It truly resembled an intricately shaped coral. The moment Tirog's eyes landed on the coral blood sword, he immediately took a few steps back. The monkey masters had a strong fighting instinct, and Tirog immediately sensed that this strange blood sword was dangerous. The real primeval lord of heaven and the real snake goddess didn't budge, but they recalled to mind the time Zen and the resentment-level treacherous being had fought back on the pure sky platform. At the time, Zen's body had been devoured, only coral-like streaks of blood were left of him. Chapter 3689, Reckless. At that time, Zen had directly got into the body of the resentment-level treacherous being. He killed it instantly with the light of annihilation. If not for his quick action, Zen and his companions would probably have all been killed on the pure sky platform. Now these coral-shaped blood streaks had reappeared, and they actually formed a sword at Zen's will. It's a basic blood-controlling method. If used on any other bloodlines, it wouldn't be very strong. I wonder how powerful the ancestry-level bloodline would be if this method is used on it. Tirog said, staring intently at the coral blood sword. The primeval lord of heaven was feeling somewhat confused. "Master Tereg, may I ask you something? After one merges with a bloodline, one will naturally be able to display its theurgy. What then is the use of this blood-controlling method? Usually, after a warrior merged with a bloodline, its power would become the warrior's basic talent. For Eternal Realm warriors, such a blood-controlling method seemed unnecessary." Tirog was not interested in these theories of the human spirit sect, but he knew a lot about secret skills and theurgies. He snorted at the primeval lord of heaven's question. Coldly, he said, "The blood-controlling method is the most basic use of the bloodlines, and it can also stimulate the bloodline to the limit. The Eternal Realm warriors in your system only make use of less than 30% of their bloodlines." The primeval lord of heaven was stunned, so was the snake goddess, whose bright eyes widened at Tirog's words. Was it true? The bloodline that they had always been proud of, which they had classified as the bloodline of the Eternal Realm, was only 30% activated. Or maybe a bit more, Tirog added. But, the snake goddess sounded unconvinced. "Why isn't there any blood-controlling method in the chaos?" she asked, looking directly at Tirog. This simple question stumped him. For a moment he was silent, at a loss for words. He knew the blood-controlling method, but he didn't know how to build secondary worlds. He didn't even know why there was the need to build secondary worlds. He only knew that they could obtain energy from the secondary worlds. The primeval lord of heaven spoke up. Could it be that one can only learn the blood-controlling method by becoming a member of the Four-Spirit sect? He suggested. Tirog nodded. Yes, if those monkeys in the secondary worlds are smart enough, After joining our monkey spirit sect, we will naturally teach them the blood controlling method. Those in the secondary worlds are not qualified to learn the skill. The real snake goddess and the primeval lord of heaven sighed inwardly. They had only used 30% or less of the bloodline power they were proud of. The gap was bigger than they could have imagined. Is the blood controlling method only a skill of using bloodlines? The snake goddess asked. Zen seemed to only have extracted his bloodline and converted it into a sword just now. This time, Tirog shook his head. Of course not. Different blood controlling methods have different focuses. Most of them focus on bringing out the potential ability of one's own bloodline, but a small portion are concerned with the direct usage of the bloodline power. For example, the blood controlling method of the divine flame blood is to directly extract the blood and turn it into divine flames that can be wielded as a weapon against others. As he spoke of the divine flame blood, a slight frown appeared on his face. It was the strongest and most outrageously powerful of the root-level bloodlines, yet it also caused terrible side effects. In the past, many members of the snake spirit sect and the bird spirit sect had inherited the divine flame blood. If they fought in a battle using the divine flame blood, they had to consume their own bloodline until they were completely drained, leading to their death. The blood controlling method left on the stone tablet by Kincaid should be working in the similar way. It only made Zen extract the bloodline directly instead of strengthening the ability of his bloodline. After all, the abilities of the ancestry-level bloodline were too complicated. The power of the ancestry-level bloodline is quite extraordinary, said Tirog. For instance, Rodney, a member of the human spirit sect, once used a drop of ancestry-level bloodline as a hidden weapon. When he injected it into his opponent's body, it caused his enemy to explode and die. No living being could bear the power of the ancestry-level bloodline. If they came into contact with it, it caused an explosion, and they died. Thus, it was definitely one of the most powerful hidden weapons a warrior could use. However, the drop of ancestry-level bloodline that Rodney had tried hard to extract was eventually taken away by the Snake Spirit King. I wonder how powerful Zen's blood sword is, the primeval Lord of Heaven mused. We could try it on the star stones in the Ghost Mountain, the snake goddess proposed. The great ghost priests of the Ghost Mountain also had their cultivation places. The star stones were very solid, and could be used to test the power of the hatred-level treacherous beings. No need to go through all that trouble, said Tirog, smirking. He pointed at his own chest. Go on, stab me right now. Zen raised an eyebrow. He and his companions looked at Tirog as though he was insane, wondering if he was serious. They knew that monkey masters were famous for their bravery and recklessness, but this went beyond that. Tirog was brave to the point of foolishness. But Tirog ignored their stares. Don't worry, he said in a tone of indifference. You can't kill me as long as you don't use the light of annihilation, and if you do manage to kill me, I can revive in the Ghost Mountain. So hurry up, I want to see the power of your blood sword. Master Tirog, this blood sword is formed from the ancestry-level bloodline, Zen said slowly. I don't know what special ability it would have. Zen certainly had no intention of stabbing Tirog with the coral blood sword. He had seen the power of the ancestry-level bloodline, and it was tremendous. There was nothing it could not dissolve. Although treacherous beings were powerful and seemingly indestructible, it was still possible for them to be killed. But Tirog had no patience for Zen's hesitation. Even as Zen tried to dissuade him, he reached out and grabbed Zen's wrist. To everyone's shock, he pulled Zen's arm forward. Zen looked astonished as Tirog drove the sword into his chest. In an instant, the coral blood sword was embedded deeply in Tirog's body. The real primeval Lord of Heaven and the real snake goddess watched the scene with expressions of disbelief. It was well known that these monkey masters were powerful figures, and they were also reputed to be frank and straightforward in their personality. But this was too much. Why had Tirog dared to do such a thing? Was he truly insane? If there were more monkey masters like him in the monkey spirit sect, then no wonder their sect was trapped on the small Night View Island for so long. Master Tirog, Zen spluttered, staring at him. It's just a blood sword, Tirog said calmly. It's sharp and can break through my defense. Its power is quite impressive. But I. In the instant after he stabbed himself, Tirog had seemed unchanged, as though he didn't care about the sword buried in his body. But as he spoke, he suddenly trailed off, his voice taking on a strange tone. The moment the blood sword pierced Tirog's chest, it had sent coral branches throughout the meridians of his body. Within seconds, they had spread out over his entire body. Zen and the others gaped at Tirog. The surface of his skin was covered with a net of fine red lines, and his body was growing stiffer and stiffer. He opened his mouth but was no longer able to speak, although his eyes remained wide open. There was an enormous boom. Tirog's body had exploded. His body, in the form of a treacherous being, cracked along the lines of the red net on his skin. Chunks of his body flew in all directions, splattering all across the hall. Fortunately, the treacherous being was not made of flesh and blood. If a normal body had disintegrated like this, the entire hall would be stained with gore. Master Tirog, Zen, the real primeval Lord of Heaven, and the real snake goddess gazed around them at the pieces of Tirog's body, wearing looks of helplessness and anxiety. I'm going to find other monkey masters for help, the primeval Lord of Heaven said. These monkey masters were all elites in the monkey spirit sect. They had to explain what had happened, so no one would think that a monkey master had been killed by Zen. They were startled when a familiar voice suddenly spoke. No need for that, said Tirog. The pieces scattered across the hall began to wriggle towards each other. In a few moments, they had all joined together to reform Tirog's body. Indeed, the treacherous beings were truly terrifying. Their bodies were flexible and virtually indestructible. Even a treacherous being who had been cut into thousands of pieces, like Tirog, could regenerate almost immediately. Of course, if Zen had used the light of annihilation, the result might be different. The primeval Lord of Heaven heaved a deep sigh of relief upon seeing that Tirog had completely recovered. Tirog came up to Zen and studied his coral blood sword closely. There was a trace of envy in his eyes. So, the most basic blood-controlling method could actually achieve such power. How terrifying would it be if all the potential of the ancestry-level bloodline in Zen's body was brought out fully? Chapter 3690, Request. After Zen had completely mastered the blood-controlling method, he went to meet the Monkey Spirit King again. The latter was surprised to see Zen's coral blood sword. It was an unusual thing. However, as a monkey, he knew no more about the ancestry-level bloodline than Tirog did. Even if he knew nothing about it at all, it wouldn't matter. All he cared about was whether Zen could grant him the blended bloodlines. He was not interested in the ancestry-level bloodline itself, not unless he could fuse with it. His past had been rather unfortunate. He was unable to fuse with the ancestry-level bloodline before his corporeal body got destroyed. He might have had a chance at that time. But now, he had become a treacherous being, which meant it was impossible for him to do so anymore. Alas, I was under the impression that Kincaid had left the methods of merging bloodlines somewhere here, the Monkey Spirit King sighed. There was a look of regret and helplessness on his face. Zen cupped his hands towards him and said, "Don't worry. I am sure we can still find a way." "Really, is there something you can do?" the Monkey Spirit King asked disdainfully. He admired Kincaid from the bottom of his heart. In his eyes, only Kincaid could help him in this world. Zen was nothing to him and he was only paying the man any attention because there was a slight chance Zen could help him. Besides, Zen, the primeval Lord of Heaven, and the Snake Goddess were all fake human spirits. The only reason the Monkey Spirit King hadn't chased them away was that they had saved his life. In any case, it was preposterous to expect them to come up with a way to merge the bloodlines. Zen himself knew the Monkey Spirit King was rather arrogant. And to be honest, if he were the Monkey Spirit King, he would also have looked down upon the humans. However, he said in a tone that was neither humble nor pushy, although we are not human spirits, we still are sentient, intelligent beings. The primeval Lord of Heaven managed to merge the source-level bloodlines even though there were only a few dozen of them. You should have noticed this before. Looking back, when the Monkey Spirit King had been trapped in the dream, he had felt the auras of the blended bloodlines, which had brought him a little glimmer of hope. "Is it true? Did you do that?" the Monkey Spirit King asked, staring at the primeval Lord of Heaven. "Yes," the primeval Lord of Heaven said. "Good job." The Monkey Spirit King suddenly complimented him with a laugh and then continued in a serious tone, "If you want me to give you some benefits, you can ask directly. Whatever you do, don't lie to me about blended bloodlines. Although I'm not good at studying, I'm not a fool. And I can easily spot a liar." The Monkey Spirit King suddenly began burning with anger. Zen, the primeval Lord of Heaven, and the Snake Goddess immediately felt a heavy stone-like pressure pressing down on their hearts. It was true, the Monkey Spirit King was not stupid, and neither were the Monkey Masters. In fact, they were extremely intelligent creatures, and their intuition was quite strong. Lying to them was impossible. Zen had the ancestry-level bloodline in his body. If the primeval Lord of Heaven really was confident about merging bloodlines, he would never have bargained in this vague way. The Monkey Spirit King knew this very well. "Please calm down, Monkey Spirit King," Zen called out, cupping his hands once again. "You misunderstood me." "Oh, Really? The monkey spirit king sneered coldly. He hated a lot of things, but what he hated most was when others treated him as a fool. Kincaid was an exception. From what we could learn and decipher from the stone tablets in the coffin, we can merge bloodlines, and the process is not difficult. However, it will take a long time, and we will need a lot of manpower as well as material resources, Zen explained. I am patient, I can wait, the monkey spirit king replied as he waved his hand. The wind pressure he was exerting on the people in front of him was lifted. A noise like rolling giant stones could be heard in the hall when that happened. He had been waiting for countless years. He had all the time in the world. You can, but the chaos cannot. And the snake masters and the bird masters can't either. They will definitely not be satisfied with this, said Zen. They can come if they want to. No one is blocking them. The monkey spirit king replied indifferently. The monkey spirit sect was like the weapon of the four spirit sect. And the monkey spirit king himself was the strongest weapon in the four spirit sect. Those birds and snakes meant nothing to him. Zen, the primeval lord of heaven, and the snake goddess fell silent when they saw his expression. They knew that the monkey spirit sect had once been defeated by the snake spirit sect. The monkey spirit king clearly realized what they were thinking about and said in a low, diffident voice, look. If we were in the main world, those snakes would have been torn to pieces by my hands. Even if Cornelius himself were to confront me, he would face no good end. But it is hard to say what would happen in the chaos. The monkey spirit king had been completely invincible in the main world. We are familiar with the chaos. As the continuation of human spirits, we will try our best to help you. But you must understand that it's difficult for us to fight them or stand against them. Please grant us the blood-controlling methods, and let us fuse with a few treacherous beings. That way, we will at least stand a chance against the snake spirit sect. And we will fight alongside your sect. Zen made a request again. The Ghost Mountain had once had several strict rules. Only the great ghost priests were allowed to fuse with hatred-level treacherous beings. Among the human heroes, only 4 of them had obtained hatred-level treacherous beings, while the others merely had resentment-level ones. But the most important thing right now was the blood-controlling methods. They could increase the power of one's own bloodline by a factor of 3, which was an extremely strong boost for the human heroes. Zen was trying his best right now, and saying whatever he needed in order to persuade the monkey spirit king. The human race didn't only need help from the monkey spirit sect. They also needed the sect to treat them as allies, just like they had been allies with the human spirit sect before. This was much more important than any help they could give. The monkey spirit king looked at Zen with his big eyes. He knew clearly what Zen was implying. But to him, Zen was like a child making an unreasonable request to an adult. It was ridiculous. However, the monkey spirit king had an intuition that he should trust this human. And that was only because of the ancestry-level bloodline. Kincaid knew the most about the ancestry-level bloodline. Zen's fusion with the ancestry-level bloodline was sure to have something to do with Kincaid. Kincaid's decision was always the right one. Thinking about that, the monkey spirit king felt relieved, and then put on a lazy look. Tirog, take them to fetch the blood-controlling methods. They can choose whatever treacherous beings they like in the Ghost Mountain. If he were to be honest, the monkey spirit king had a few measures he could use to control Zen. However, he had always trusted his instincts, and he was going to do the same today. Right now, he was treating these humans as members of the human spirit sect, so he would not resort to those despicable methods. Very soon, Zen and the others left the Ghost Mountain and went to the grotto in the south of the Night View Island. As soon as Zen announced news of fusion with hatred-level treacherous beings, the humans in the grotto got excited. The snake goddess, Fuxi, Yasamine, King Yayan and the 3 eternal realm hunters looked at Zen with expectant eyes. They were wondering whether they could fuse with treacherous beings as well. After all, they had come from outside the Night View Island. Of course, Zen knew what they wanted. He smiled faintly and then set them at ease. Everyone can choose a treacherous being and fuse with it. I also have another piece of good news. What is it? The snake goddess asked. The monkey masters will give you the blood-controlling methods, Zen replied with a smile. What are they? Fuxi asked in a confused tone. They are methods to activate the bloodlines of the 4 spirit sect. They can improve your bloodline power, Zen explained. Chiyu asked curiously, really? How much improvement? I mean, how much of a difference would it make? A lot. They can improve your bloodline power by about 3 times, Zen replied with another big smile. Chapter 3691, Eliminate Hidden Dangers. 3 times. The crowd couldn't help but exclaim and ask repeatedly if what they heard was correct. All of the Eternal Realm warriors that were present had already lived for countless years. In those years, they had already used their bloodlines to the fullest, especially the human heroes. And in the current civilization, the Snake Goddess, Fuxi, King Yayan, Eastern Emperor Tai, Yasamine, and the Eternal Realm Hunters were in the same situation. It actually meant that there was almost no room for further development anymore. That was why it was very hard for them to imagine that a blood-controlling method could easily increase their blood power by 3 times. After being extremely surprised, expressions of joy instantly filled everyone's faces. "Zen, can you really confirm that?" Eastern Emperor Tai asked in disbelief. "Yes, it should be true," Zen answered confidently. "Everyone's bloodline comes from the Four Spirits sect. Generally, only after one joins the Four Spirits sect can he or she be taught with the blood-controlling method. However, this time, it is sort of a special exception," he continued. Currently, the Monkey Spirit King did not have much confidence to deal with the ferocious Snake Spirit sect. And although the strength of these human beings was much inferior compared to the Monkey Masters, they became worthy of being favored by the Monkey Spirit sect. Moreover, Zen possessed the precious ancestry-level bloodline, meaning that his potential was limitless. "I can't believe that there are such methods in this world. It seems that there is still so much that we don't know." Well, the blood-controlling methods are from the main world outside the chaos. We should just be grateful that we can get a hold of this knowledge. Everyone talked about it, even the usually calm ones couldn't help but join the joyous conversations. There was a huge cave inside the Heavenly Square City. The cave extended from the left side of the Heavenly Square City to the right side. Then it wended its way west. It almost extended to every corners of the Heavenly Square City. However, none of the rooms of different sizes inside the city was connected to it. Cornelius, the Snake Spirit King, dwelled and was hidden in this cave. Beneath the Heavenly Square City, his body spread along the cave into all the corners of the city. From the outside, it would look like an ordinary city, but its true face was a lair of Cornelius. Sewell entered from the top of the Heavenly Square City and climbed down to the center of the huge cave. This was where Cornelius's head was located. His head was covered with dark red scales, and each of these scales had unique patterns with red blood light flowing within them. From these scales, a devastating aura was being constantly emitted. On the head of the Snake Spirit King was a peculiar pair of coxcombs. Currently, his huge dreadful eyes were closed. As Sewell arrived in front of Cornelius, he slightly bit his lip before approaching. "My king," Sewell whispered as he knelt in front of the Snake Spirit King. Soon after, Cornelius slowly opened his eyes. 2 crescent-shaped figures appeared in his pair of huge snake eyes. "So, you failed?" Cornelius asked straightforwardly. "Yes, I'm sorry," Sewell replied in a soft voice. "It doesn't really matter. We still have a chance," Cornelius said in an indifferent tone. "But," Sewell reluctantly continued, "the Monkey Spirit King has awakened. Before escaping from the Ghost Mountain, he had already sent some spies to keep watch in the area. Through them, although he wasn't able to detect every movement in the Ghost Mountain, he still had a general grasp of what was happening on the Night View Island." Until now, Sewell was still confused. If the 13-teeth necklace couldn't wake the Monkey Spirit King before, then why were they able to succeed this time using the same item? He couldn't think of what mistake he had committed allowing this failure to happen. After Cornelius heard Sewell's news, his eyes slightly dilated. He seemed to be also surprised at that. But soon after, his eyes returned to their normal state. "That monkey is only invincible in the main world. Right here, I can even kill him twice. Don't be too depressed about it." Cornelius was famous for being cruel, but when it came to his subordinates, he was actually quite lenient. With this kind of attitude from the Snake Spirit King, Sewell felt more ashamed of his failure. "However, we need to kill the monkey spirits in the Heavenly Square City and remove their coordinates. Do this discreetly," Cornelius strictly instructed. In the Heavenly Square City, there were also monkey spirits and human spirits aside from the snake spirits. After their leaders had fallen, these monkey spirits and human spirits started treating the Heavenly Square City as the Four Spirits sect. Although they were still on guard against the Snake Spirit King, they had no choice but to stay here and work for the Snake Spirit sect. Originally, Cornelius planned to control the Monkey Spirit King. Once their king was already at his disposal, then it meant that he could also control the monkey spirits. But now that the Monkey Spirit King had completely awakened, these monkey spirits immediately became hidden dangers that were necessary to be eliminated. They had to do it quickly before the monkey spirits could plot something against the Snake Spirit sect. Consider it done. With that, Sewell immediately withdrew from the cave and planned on how he would execute the task given to him. An hour later, all of the monkey spirits in the city were gathered. "Master Sewell, what's the matter? We were told that something urgent came up," the leader of the monkey spirits asked. He was Alston, one of the previously most powerful warriors in the monkey spirit sect. "That's right. Your coordinates have been moved to the Supreme Pure Realm," Sewell announced. "The Supreme Pure Realm? Why?" Alston asked in confusion. Even the other monkey spirits started murmuring with each other. "We actually found some clues about the monkey spirit king," Sewell replied. The monkey spirits glanced at each other. There were mixed emotions as they heard Sewell's news. "He is in the Supreme Pure Realm. Did he wake up already?" The monkey spirits simultaneously asked a lot of questions, expressing concern for their king. "No, he's actually trapped on the Night View Island and is being guarded by the bird spirits," Sewell replied. "He needs your help, but the entrance to the Night View Island is sealed. I can help you enter the island, but you can only revive through the coordinates." "I'll do it." "Me too. We're going to invade the island. Hurry up, kill us now." Looking at the monkey spirits' determined and impatient faces, Sewell almost couldn't suppress his laughter. Such a group of idiots. They're actually begging us to kill them. However, he didn't reveal any emotion so as not to get caught. Then, he said, "Everyone, please wait a moment. After we fetch and activate the Light of Annihilation, we will kill you. We have already arranged a large number of snake spirits that will guide you to the entrance of the Night View Island. When you come back to life, we will cooperate together. Those birds would surely not stand a chance." With a flick of Sewell's tail, hundreds of snake spirits swarmed over. Sharp white bones were inserted into their heads, inlaid with the holy stones. As long as the white bones were stabbed into the bodies of the monkey spirits, the Light of Annihilation would immediately kill those treacherous beings. "Wait a minute, Master Sewell. May I just ask why are we not informed about the matter of moving our coordinates?" Alston asked. The monkey spirits had the strong intuition. Although Sewell explained everything clearly, and he didn't show any expression that could harbor doubts, Alston was still quite hesitant. He just felt that something was amiss, and this situation was so rushed. "I lurked into the Night View Island and was ultimately repelled by the divine hummingbirds, so I had no choice but to arrange your coordinates there in a hurry," Sewell replied. Alston's suspicion grew continuously. "But how come there are so many snake spirits here just to kill us? Are you afraid that we will resist?" As soon as Alston said this, the other monkey spirits had also become alert. They started to realize that there was something strange going on. They were willing to defy all difficulties and danger for the monkey spirit king, and they were also ready to be killed just so they could enter the Night View Island. It was quite abnormal for Sewell to arrange so many snake spirits that carried the holy stones. "Come on, you're just thinking too much," Sewell said with a smile and still played it cool. "Then how about we go to the Night View Island by ourselves? No matter how troublesome those birds are, I don't think we, the monkey spirits, would be defeated by them," Alston insisted. Sewell's lips started to twitch as he became annoyed with the monkey spirit's stubbornness. "You don't need to do that." He finally forced a smile as he lost his patience. "I've decided. All of you shall die here, right now." As soon as he finished speaking, he wagged his tail and immediately ordered the snake spirits to attack them. Without the holy stones, the monkey spirits were unable to kill the snake spirits even with their monstrous strength. Even if they tore the bodies of the snake spirits into pieces, they would just recover immediately. On the other hand, once the monkey spirits were stabbed by the white bones infused with the Light of Annihilation, they would instantly die. It turned out to be a cruel massacre. The battle was fierce at first, but the monkey spirits' resistance was futile. The monkey spirits were able to battle it out against the snake spirits for an hour before they were all finally eliminated. "Go and erase their coordinates," Sewell said coldly after watching all of the monkey spirits dissipate after the vicious battle. "You brought this to yourselves. I was actually merciful enough to give you a quick death, but you asked for such a tragic one." Chapter 3692, The Red Stairs. On the huge pillar, Jeffrey was climbing the steep staircase step by step. In actuality, climbing up the huge pillar was a very complicated thing. Every 1,000 steps, there would be a statue blocking his way. When it came to the rotten and scrapped statues, he dealt with them with ease. He only needed to carefully pass them without making any contact. However, the intact and mobile ones were great trouble. Every time Jeffrey encountered a statue that could move, he would forcefully pull the rope that connected him and Zia. Then, at the foot of the pillar, Zia would pull Jeffrey down from the pillar. Zia wasn't able to clearly see what was happening on the pillar, so he was there as a support for Jeffrey. Fortunately, he could still control his physical strength very well. So whenever Jeffrey would be in danger, Zia would immediately drag him down. And before he hit the ground, Zia would firmly catch him. When the statues started chasing after them, they would run towards the nearest cave. However, the mobile statues were tenacious. Once they locked on their targets, they wouldn't give up easily until they were destroyed. They circled down the stairs and chased after Jeffrey into the nearest world. After several attempts of repeating the same process, Zia realized that they were up for a long-term battle. Thus, he decided to put up a big array at the entrance of the world. Jeffrey and Zia entered the array first. When the statues chased after them and entered the array was instantly activated. Streaks of golden lightning burst out from all directions and pierced into the weak parts of the statues. Crack, crack, the statues were charred by the bolts of lightning, but they still weren't completely destroyed. With that, Zia took out his god-lashing whip. He let out tens of thousands of golden whip shadows, lashing out the solid statues until they finally disintegrated. Fortunately, the statues have been corroded over time, so they were quite easy to destroy, Zia said after crushing the statues to pieces. The powers possessed by the statues in the past were absolutely greater compared to what they were experiencing now. Even Zia couldn't fully resist them. After destroying the most recent statue, Zia noticed a frown on Jeffrey's face. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I'm just tired," Jeffrey answered as he let out a sigh. Personally, Jeffrey didn't have a persistent attitude. Back then, he just came to explore the 4 pillars because he found them really interesting. At first, he was fascinated by what he found out about it. He could control other people's other shore tokens at will, and he could climb up the stairs. He wondered what he would encounter if he was able to climb up to the top of the pillar. He also thought that if he could find his father's other shore tokens there, he would have the opportunity to change them to more powerful ones. He was excited to know how his father would react when he found out that his other shore tokens were upgraded. But all of that was just his wishful thinking. The reality that he found out was so much different from what he imagined. The pillar was too high that he couldn't say for sure if he would be able to reach its top. In the beginning, Jeffrey was still counting the steps that he had climbed. Whenever he had climbed about 1,000 steps, he would encounter the statues that would attack the intruders. Since he had no means to defeat the statues, he would pull the rope and descend to the bottom, and then he would let Zia deal with the statues. After the statues were successfully destroyed, he would continue climbing up. The higher he climbed, the longer it took him to get back when a statue started attacking. There were even times when he had mistaken a stationary statue for a mobile one. Because of that, he accidentally pulled the rope, so Zia immediately dragged him down. In those cases, he really regretted wasting so much energy and effort. The process was getting so boring. Jeffrey, who was the one climbing the pillar, was already running out of patience and wanted to give up. Surely, Zia also knew about that. He knew how tiresome and dangerous it was. However, the fact remained that the pillar could control the other shore tokens in the chaos. Its importance was very evident. "We've been here for a long time, huh?" Zia sighed. "I know it's tough for you, but..." "Yes, I know," Jeffrey interrupted him before he could finish his sentence. Then, he grabbed the rope that was lying on the ground and climbed up again without saying anything. Zia was surprised at first, and then a faint smile appeared on his face. Over the years, Jeffrey had always acted on his own and rarely accepted any responsibility. This was totally new to him, but at the same time, it was the perfect training. While he climbed and fell repeatedly, he eventually learned how to be patient. He also learned how to see the positive side of what they were doing. In fact, there was an interesting feat that could be seen when he climbed up the pillar. The pages were connected to many other shore tokens. Through the silk threads on these pages, he could witness what was happening on the other shore. Once, he saw a group of humans through the rays of light on the stairs. He tried communicating with them, but he got no response. So, he realized that the rays of light could only project the scenes from the other shore, and they couldn't transmit his voice. What he could do was upgrade their other shore tokens by changing the rays of light. However, there were too many other shore tokens in there, and they came in various forms. They were in the form of sand, a leaf, a stone, and generally anything else. There were so many creatures residing on the other shore, so it was simply unrealistic to check them one by one. With that, he also gave up looking for the ones possessed by Zen. Therefore, as time passed by, Jeffrey started ignoring the other shore tokens and just kept climbing to the top. When he climbed to a certain height, he noticed that all of the statues guarding the pillar were almost rotten, and they no longer chased him. Thus, his determination got a boost, and his speed steadily increased. A few months had passed, and Jeffrey was now able to reach such a great height. He stuck his head out of the stairs and looked up. He wanted to check if he could already see the top of the pillar. Finally, he saw that he was quite near. It was still high, but already achievable. He also tried to look down the pillar. However, he couldn't see anything except for the rope that was hanging. After all, he was already at such a great height. He and Zia were only connected by this rope. Then, he suddenly thought that if the rope had extended to such a great length, it should have become very heavy by now. But he noticed that it was still the same. A strange thought came to Jeffrey's mind, so he looked down again and tried to inspect the rope more intently this time. His expression suddenly changed as he realized that his guess was actually true. He saw that the rope was torn apart. But Jeffrey was so busy climbing, so he didn't know when it broke. This is bad. Should I go back? However, as soon as this thought entered his mind, he shook his head and slapped his cheeks with both hands. Although he still felt tired, he realized how he had worked so hard to climb this height. It would all be in vain if he retreated now. He still had great confidence that there were no more statues that were going to chase him, so he convinced himself to climb all the way to the top and have a look at what was waiting for him there. Finally, Jeffrey made up his mind and continued climbing up the stairs without Zia's protection. In the upper half of the pillar, he noticed that the rays of light shining upon the stairs had gradually become scarce. Previously, the light was densely distributed to every step. But now, every stair only had about 1 or 2 rays of light on them. There were still extraordinary other shore tokens at the end of the light, but Jeffrey just continued to move up. After climbing for a few more days, he was now very close to the top of the pillar. Then suddenly, he noticed that the color of the stairs beneath his feet had changed. The previously gray-colored stairs glowed bright red. Moreover, on these bright red-colored stairs, there was no more light shining on them. The absence of light means that there are no other shore tokens connected to them, Jeffrey muttered as he observed the stairs. On the side of each stair, there were still many small black stones, but none of them was emitting light anymore. As he continued to climb, the stairs that he had stepped on all became bright red in color, and there was still no light on them. But after about 5 or 6 stairs, he finally saw a ray of light from one of the stairs. The previous ones released an orange light, while this one emitted a bright red light. Chapter 3693, I'm Human. It seems that the higher I climb up, the stronger the other shore tokens are at the other end of the light, Jeffrey thought. Then again, he had long confirmed such a theory. However, a distinct boundary between the steps formed by the pages did not previously exist. He only knew that the other shore tokens were always better in the next page. Now that there was a distinct boundary, his interest naturally increased a lot. He squatted on the side of the page and pointed towards the red light. The moment he touched the red light, he saw a long, simple sword. A layer of white cloth wrapped around the hilt of the sword, and it appeared worn down. It also had a rough and dented blade with thin cracks. Despite the sword's flaws, surprisingly, it emitted great energy all the time. Where is this sword located? It appears to be inside a tower. Then, he moved his fingers back and forth along the red light so he could adjust the angle of sight. The inside of the tower was quite empty, but many other shore tokens were neatly hung up on the wall. Is this a cultivation tower of some civilization? He had noticed before that there were some other shore tokens placed with the other tokens in an orderly fashion. Generally speaking, some civilizations and forces collected the other shore tokens for their disciples to use. This tower was no exception. But compared to what he had observed before, there was more variety of other shore tokens in this place. While he observed the tower, the old man at the top of the tower suddenly saw something strange. At that moment, he dashed and went inside the tower. Since he was connected to the mysterious yellow tower, he could notice everything happening inside the tower as soon as it occurred. For instance, he sensed that someone was observing the situation inside the tower just now. The old man's movement also caught the attention of the young man in cyan robes. In the blink of an eye, the young man in cyan also rushed to the old man's side. What's wrong? Did anything happen? The young man in cyan asked. The old man looked around and said in a grave voice, someone is observing the mysterious yellow tower. The young man in cyan also followed the old man's gaze and smiled, did you have an illusion? Today is not the day to ring the bell. Why? Quote. Shut up. The old man scolded sternly. The old man was usually quite amiable, while the young man was rather rude in front of him. However, the old man rarely scolded him in such a harsh tone. The young man knew that something was wrong, so he shut his mouth. Meanwhile, the old man proceeded to go around the 31st and 32nd floors of the mysterious yellow tower. Finally, he stopped in the middle of the 33rd floor and looked at the sword inside it. It was the lone sword. It was another short token with little information, so it was hard to evaluate its grade. Furthermore, no one knew who had used it. Neither did anyone know what kind of abilities it had. The only thing that was clear about it was that one could merge with it with the truth of eternal sword intent. Unfortunately, no one knew how to use it after the merge. For example, the old man had fused with the sword with his unique talent, but he still could not use it. It seemed that it was just an ordinary sword. Still, the old man did not believe that it was. In the end, he placed the lone sword in the mysterious yellow tower and waited for someone who could make use of it. After a while of silence, his voice filled the floor. "Here," he said in a trembling voice. On the other hand, the mysterious observer just stared at the sword shamelessly without even bothering to hide his gaze. The young man in cyan robes looked at the lone sword for a while. He had also tried to use the weapon, but like the old man, he had failed. Could it be that there is something in the sword? Maybe there is a soul trapped inside. Or even a treacherous being. The young man in cyan robes carefully examined the sword and even sniffed it a little, but he did not sense anything strange. "No," the old man muttered. "The mysterious presence came from the other side of the other shore token," he explained. The young man's eyes narrowed in doubt at the old man's words. "That seems odd." "Are you sure?" he asked. "Yes," said the old man. The young man was also shocked. Of course, he did not dare to doubt the old man. Besides, the old man would never talk nonsense about the matter. The old man stared at the lone sword for a while the eyes behind its blade continued to observe. "Hello, can you hear me?" the old man asked. "Hello, can you answer me if you heard me?" he asked again. "Who are you? Where are you?" Now, Jeffrey, who stood on the step formed by the page, heard and saw everything. He even saw the nostrils of the young man in cyan robes quite clearly. The tower and its owner must have come from a powerful background, and he also wanted to communicate with him. The old man had sensed his gaze with his keen observation. It was already a miraculous thing because no one had ever noticed him before. Naturally, he wanted to answer the old man's question. The problem was that he could not do it at all. How can I communicate with him? Do I use my consciousness? But the light is one way, and it is impossible to transmit sound. He thought. He was now as anxious as ants on a hot pan. At that point, the young man in cyan robes in the mysterious yellow tower rolled his eyes and said, "If you can hear us, you can stop staring for the time being." "Stop staring?" "Yes, that is also a way of communication," Jeffrey exclaimed. Therefore, he did what the young man said, and his fingers left the red light. In turn, the old man noticed that the gaze behind the lone sword had disappeared. He heard us, the old man said joyfully. Whoever was behind that gaze not only heard them but also understood their language. The young man in cyan robes was so smart. Since they could not communicate through such a one-way observation channel the light had formed, he quickly came up with an effective solution. "Since you can understand our language, you should be able to write in our language too. Remember, please do as I say. We write according to the sequence of letters," said the young man in cyan robes. "The first letter is A, the second letter is B, the third letter is C, so on and so forth. If you blink once, then that means the first letter, twice for the second letter, 3 times for the third letter and so on," he explained. All the words in the world consisted of letters. The person on the other side could not speak, but he could control his gaze, which made it possible for them to communicate. When the old man heard his disciple's idea, a faint smile graced his face. It was not unusual to spell words in letters to communicate, but his disciple had thought of it in a critical moment. Indeed, the young man was quite smart. "It's your turn, old man," the young man in cyan said and waved his hand. The old man asked the first question, "Who are you?" On the other side, Jeffrey thought for a moment and gently moved his fingers on the red light. Soon enough, he finished. The letters spelled, "human." When the old man saw his answer, his face changed dramatically. "Old man, has he given an answer already? That quickly?" the young man in cyan robes asked. Even then, he still looked impatient. "Human," the old man said. "Human." The young man in cyan robes thought of this word in his mind, and he was also surprised. "It is a human spirit," he declared. It is impossible. The human spirits, monkey spirits, snake spirits, and bird spirits cannot return to the main world. It's impossible to go back. It can't be a human spirit. The old man shook his head. On the opposite side, Jeffrey was also baffled. What is the human spirit they are talking about? I'm human. Thus, he began to fiddle with the red light with his fingers. He wanted to add the word, race. His fingers moved the red light according to the way they agreed on. Before he even finished, however, the old man already had the word in his mind. Chapter 3694, Suspicion. The old man was stunned. After a few moments, the young man in cyan robes next to him urged, "Old man, what did he or she say?" "Human race, he or she is from the human race," the old man replied. The young man's eyes flashed as he stared at the lone sword. These two words contained so much information that both the old man and the young man tried to think harder. Human spirits were equivalent to the humans of the main world, but they never recognized themselves as human race. Many arrogant human spirits even insisted that they were completely different from the human race. This kind of situation was usual among the monkey spirits, the bird spirits, and the snake spirits. Some spirits in the Four Spirits sect had a natural sense of superiority. They never agreed that the races from the secondary worlds were their kind. "Did you come from the chaos?" The old man asked a second question. The person at the other end of the light answered him in a slow and troublesome manner. The old man was afraid that problems might occur if he asked too many questions, so he only asked one by one. The gaze behind the lone sword began to flicker intermittently. After a while of observing the flicker, the old man got the answer. It was, yes. "Since you are from the chaos, how did you get out?" The old man continued. The young man in cyan robes came to a strong realization. The human outside was really his kind. The problem was, the chaos was a closed world. How in the world could one get a chance out of a closed world? That human probably met an unforeseen opportunity, the young man thought. As the gaze flickered some more, the old man once again received a brief answer. "I just crawled out." The old man could not hide his amazement precisely because he had been to the main world. He knew it was impossible to just crawl out of the chaos. It was already difficult to break the barrier between the other shore and the chaos, let alone the barrier between the chaos and the main world. The old man felt the other party might have been fooling him, so he reminded himself to be vigilant. It might be someone who worked for the snake spirits. They might have found a way to return to the main world and get back to the Four Pillars. They were trying to confirm their location through other shore tokens, and it was a very dangerous act. It wasn't only the old man who doubted the other party. Jeffrey on the other end was also conflicted in answering the questions. He felt uncertain about the other party's purpose. Zia didn't tell him that the secrets of the deleting space could not be disclosed, because it was almost impossible for him to come into contact with anyone. But he was not stupid. It was risky to expose such a secret to outsiders. This old man might not be trustworthy. There was a hint of suspicion as they approached each other. This caused a gradual unease in their communication. "Where did you get out? What's your name? Can you roam freely in the main world? Can you climb up that pillar?" The old man asked several questions in a row, but Jeffrey stopped answering any of them. He put his finger on the red light and silently watched the two of them. After a long while, Jeffrey decided to fiddle with it again. "Who are you? Are you humans from the source world?" The old man smiled bitterly at the response. It turned out that the other party was also doubtful of him. However, it didn't matter if the other party found out about his identity. The snake spirit sect knew him and had been looking for him anyway. "I'm the leader of the human sect, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord," he replied. Hearing the name, Jeffrey tried to recall and soon gave up. "I've never heard of it." The primeval Lord of Heaven had never mentioned this name, and Zia never said he had such an uncle. The old man wasn't surprised at all. Although he was famous in the 77th chaotic era, he had been hiding in the Jade Pure realm for so long. Times had changed and legends about him had long been lost in history. They exchanged several questions, but remained on their guard and avoided sensitive problems. It was more like they tested each other until the conversation began to lead nowhere. "The less trouble, the better," Jeffrey muttered. He knew he'd better finish his goal first. He had climbed the pillar for so long and ought not to waste time on this accident. Just as Jeffrey was about to end the conversation and pull his fingers from the red light, the big bell in the Divine Bell City of the ruined graveyard suddenly clanged. It was Rocher. In only a short period, he had already made progress again. The bell-ringing meeting in the Divine Bell City was held every month. It was not yet the day, but after Rocher broke through, the force ruling the ruined graveyard made an exception for him. As expected, he had successfully entered the mysterious yellow tower. The old man and the young man in cyan robes didn't expect the bell to ring, and they had never revealed themselves to others before. The old man gently waved his hand and used a deceptive trick to disable Rocher from seeing them. Rocher showed great excitement, ringing the bell with all his might. He knew that his cultivation level had advanced so fast, all thanks to the Manta stone. The mysterious yellow tower was indeed helping him. The Manta stone was by no means an ordinary strengthening type other shore token. After entering the 32nd floor of the mysterious yellow tower, he did not intend to carry any other shore token. With the help of the Manta stone, he became confident to break through the topmost part of the tower, the 33rd floor. Naturally, those who were good at swordsmanship were sensitive to swords. Rocher had glanced at the lone sword hanging at the 33rd floor too many times from afar. The simple sword must have incredible power. It won't be long before I take off this sword myself, Rocher thought as he observed. Geoffrey was getting ready to leave when he noticed another presence. He never thought that an acquaintance of his would suddenly arrive in the tower. Uncle Rocher. Although he didn't have much interaction with Rocher, they had spent some time in the Cloud Hall and the Fairy Palace. Why is Uncle Rocher in this tower? He almost cried out. This was the first acquaintance he had seen through the light. Rocher wandered around the mysterious yellow tower for a while before he withdrew from the other shore. He was unaware and didn't feel anything unusual. Geoffrey paused for a while, thinking whether he should say something or not. Finally, he made up his mind to move the red light again. I know him, Rocher. After getting this information through the flicker of the gaze, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord was puzzled. What the hell? How could the guy behind the lone sword know Rocher? Geoffrey continued sending messages through the light as his emotions stirred. About a quarter of an hour later, the old man burst into laughter when Geoffrey finished. That's great, really great. My nephew has actually done such a feat. I didn't expect such a coincidence in the world. Ha ha ha, he exclaimed while raising his fists just like he won something. The young man in cyan robes didn't dare to interrupt and stayed silent. After a while, he could no longer help himself from asking. What is it, old man? Who is the nephew you mentioned? Zia, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord beamed with pride. It was as if he had never been so happy in the past tens of millions of years. Zia, he is still alive. The young man in cyan robes blinked as he was also shocked. Chapter 3695, A Damaged Sword. After revealing such confidential information, Geoffrey started becoming quite nervous. Most of the humans in the Source World and the Divine Land knew very little about the truth of the chaos, and they were blindly optimistic about the future. Their naive optimism sprang from their ignorance. Once the disaster finally befell them, they would not even have a chance to react before they were wiped out from the world. On the other hand, Geoffrey had acquired vast amounts of information from his father, so he was more aware of the impending crisis than most people. He was well aware that the chaos was not as stable as most people falsely believed. On the contrary, it was more like a candle flickering in a storm, and it could be snuffed out at any time. He couldn't anticipate what the consequences would be now that he had revealed so much information to the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. However, since the old man was someone Rocher could trust, he hoped he was someone worthy of his trust as well. But Geoffrey would never have known the old man was Zia's uncle. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord became excited for a while before he regained his composure and asked, as far as I know, the space and time of the main world are vastly different from those of the chaos. Even if Zia and you manage to leave the chaos, it would be difficult for you to move even a single step. Have you ever experienced the Red Jade Rite? Within the entire human race, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord was the only one who knew so much about the main world, and that was only due to his mysterious and unique past journeys. He knew that there was a special and secret method in the Four Spirits sect that could transform creatures from the secondary worlds into creatures of the main world. However, this secret method hinged on the availability of some extremely rare materials from the main world. Moreover, those qualified to undergo the Red Jade Rite were usually the most important disciples of the Four Spirits sect, and this was only performed in very rare cases. Most importantly, the current Four Spirits sect might no longer have the ability to perform such a rite. What is the Red Jade Rite? Geoffrey mused. He had never heard of such a thing. After pondering, he then replied, No, sir. Master Zia can't see anything in the main world, but I can. I've brought him all the way here. What? You have sight in the main world? Is this true? The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord demanded in shock. Yes, Geoffrey simply stated. Although the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had known it was impossible for Geoffrey to climb up the pillar if he couldn't see within the main world, he was still awed when he received the confirmation. This should have been virtually impossible. "What's your name?" the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord questioned. "Geoffrey Luo," Geoffrey answered truthfully. Upon hearing his surname, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord reflexively thought of Zen. He blurted out the resulting conjecture, "Is Zen Luo your father?" "Yes," Geoffrey replied. "How do you know my father?" Since Rocher had appeared in this tower, it confirmed that this old man must have connections to the Divine Land. Therefore, Geoffrey was not surprised that this old man knew his father. Still, he wanted to know how he knew his father. After careful consideration, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord started narrating his stories. "The grand weapon refining method your father practiced at the start of his cultivation was passed down from me. The grand weapon refining method had been the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord's prized possession for many years. He had followed the advice of his predecessor during the mysterious journey and had been very cautious about selecting a suitable user. After the 77th chaos, humans had vanished from the source world for many chaotic eras. As time trickled by, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had been at a loss on how to deal with the grand weapon refining method. Should he relinquish it to another ruling civilization? But that wouldn't do. Most ruling civilizations had refused to oppose the powerful element spirit civilization. Once a chaotic era ended, a small number of elites of the ruling civilizations retreated into the other shore, where they would usually join the element spirit civilization for survival. Still, only a small number of ruling civilizations had ever chosen to fight against the element spirit civilization. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had secretly observed these civilizations, including the Regal Jade civilization. For example, the Wing King had been high up on his list. Unfortunately, at that time, the Regal Jade civilization had cultivated a great enmity with not only the element spirit civilization but also the Nihility race. In addition, there was a significant difference between the Regal Jade civilization and the human race. Therefore, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had crossed him off the list in the end. After another 300 chaotic eras, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord still hid away in the Jade Pure Realm, silently observing the world. When the current chaotic era came, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord finally found a better opportunity. The seeds human race had sowed finally sprouted in the source world. The Snake Goddess, Fuxi, Eastern Emperor Tai, Divine Farmer, Yellow Thirk, Zhurong, Emperor Charm, Gonggong, Chiyu. It was a great era of talents. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord kept on observing in secret as he searched for the most suitable candidate. After the appearance of the primitive land, the competition within it grew fierce. Some of the young talents perished in the competition, such as Gonggong and Zhurong. Many others were powerful, but they chose to join the element spirit civilization. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had been waiting for so many chaotic eras, so he was particularly patient in this era. This was a matter of great importance, and he needed to ensure everything was suitable. Originally, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had considered Fuxi as the ideal candidate. Being powerful, Fuxi had the assistance of the Snake Goddess, and the 6 pattern blood-storing seeds inside the Pear Hill. However, with the support of the element spirit civilization, Yellow Thirk and Divine Farmer continued to amass strength. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord became hesitant. In the end, the 9 Li race was annihilated. Chiyu exiled the Divine Land from the source world. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord then pinned his hope on the Divine Land. He decided to choose this new land as the hiding place of the precious grand weapon refining method, where it was then discovered by Bromley. Geoffrey silently listened as he sat on the pillar. It was exhausting for him to communicate through the red light, therefore, he remained silent while he could. I didn't know father had been involved in so many great secrets. Geoffrey murmured to himself. After listening to the entire story, Geoffrey suddenly asked, is it because of the grand weapon refining method that I am able to move freely in the abstruse energy world? That is the only possible conclusion we can draw for now, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord agreed with a chuckle. Do you have any siblings? Did they possess the same abilities as you do? I was an only child when I left home. Geoffrey replied. He was unaware that Margaret had given birth to his sister after his departure. Then set this aside for the time being, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord said. Which stair have you reached on the pillar now? He changed the topic. I almost reached the top. Geoffrey's eyes shone with joy. Is there something I can do to help you? I can modify the ability of the other shore tokens, he offered. What, can you modify their abilities directly? The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. The young cyan-robed man's ears immediately perked up with curiosity. Yes, if you don't believe that, let me change this sword for you now. As Geoffrey spoke, he extended his hand towards the end of the red light, where a small black stone was. Please don't, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord hastily interceded. This lone sword is a powerful weapon. Even though many have carried it, none of them could unleash its power. We've been waiting for someone who can unravel the mysteries within it. The more mysterious things were, the more attractive they became. Even the omniscient Grand Supreme Elderly Lord clung to the same belief. He hoped that someone could discover the truth about this mysterious sword. Upon hearing this, Geoffrey let out a chuckle as he replied, I know why nobody could unleash the power of this sword. It's because a part of this page has been damaged. As Geoffrey was about to remove the small black stone, he discovered a deep crack on the step. He didn't know what had initially caused this crack, but he believed this was why the sword couldn't unleash its power. After Geoffrey shared this information, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord and the cyan-robed young man exchanged dismayed glances. It now appeared that this mysterious sword that they always cherished was actually a damaged other shore token. Chapter 3696, Black. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had spent a lot of time working on the lone sword. He was a little depressed about this unsatisfactory result. After finishing speaking, Geoffrey pulled out the black stone from the page. The page also had a row of square holes embedded in it. Geoffrey found the innermost hole and integrated the black stone into it. Crack. As the two parts assembled, a ray of red light blazed from it, traveling a distance towards the lone sword. When the red light reached and established a link to it, a faint blue light suddenly flashed on its surface. The surface of the sword began to produce a chill. The chill spread at an incredible speed, and before the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord could react, a thick layer of ice had already covered the inner wall of the mysterious yellow tower. Splash, splash, splash. Out of thin air, ice statues started to appear. The statues shook as they struggled to grow from the ice wall, and then they stood still, like soldiers on duty. Their stance radiated a very powerful aura. The ability of the lone sword has changed, the young man in the cyan robe said stiffly. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord also took a deep breath, as the cold aura also caused his body to chill. Regardless of the shivers down his spine, he stared at the lone sword and said, the attribute of the lone sword has really been changed. How did you do it? It's very simple, just change the black stone's position, Geoffrey replied. Can it be moved to a higher page or even the top? Wondered the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. I can have a try, replied Geoffrey. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord seemed to have gotten the idea as his face lit up with excitement. His hands trembled slightly as he waited on Geoffrey's move. The young man in the cyan robe observed his master and sighed with contentment. This old man had not acted like this for many years. The small black stone was portable and could be easily carried by Geoffrey. If he encountered something uncertain, he could place it into a page nearby. This way, he could ask the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord at any time. It was killing two birds with one stone. When Geoffrey pulled the small black stone away, the cold air from the lone sword immediately stopped blowing. The ice wall within the mysterious yellow tower had also cracked quickly. However, the rows of ice statues in front did not disappear. They revealed their consciousness after being separated from the lone sword and expressed intent of hostility towards the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Before they could make a move, the young man in the cyan robe had already rushed over like a gust of wind. He had dashed across without any sign of making a move. When he stopped at the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord's side, the row of ice statues melted into a pool of water. Geoffrey started to climb up the steps again, and saw a few more red light rays. Some of these red light rays were connected to the Supreme Pure Realm, and some were connected to the Jade Pure Realm. However, more red light rays were connected to the inner worlds. Geoffrey got closer to reach the top. He didn't bother to observe the red light rays leading to inner worlds and paid more attention to the other shore tokens in the Jade Pure Realm and the Supreme Pure Realm. In the middle of the journey, Geoffrey stopped to communicate with the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord and asked about his father's situation. He wanted to find Zen through the red light rays. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had easily observed the source world before, but his celestial eye had not been repaired after being broken by the evil god's punch. He could only guess roughly and told Geoffrey that Zen was now in the Pear Hill and had entered the Supreme Pure Realm of the other shore. The Supreme Pure Realm and the Jade Pure Realm were both large. Finding Zen through just a few other shore tokens was already like searching for a needle in a haystack. After trying to find him through dozens of red light rays, Geoffrey gave up and proceeded to move towards the top of the pillar. 4 hours later, Geoffrey stopped again. He was only 10 stairs from the top now. The 10 stairs had become very thick and each of them was 10 feet high. The red light had disappeared, and was replaced by black light. Well, this energy is sickening. When Jeffrey fixed his eyes on the black light, he was feeling dizzy. What kind of other shore tokens were these black light rays connected to? Out of caution, Jeffrey didn't dare to get close to the black light. Instead, he inserted the small black stone into the 11th stair, and a red light ray once again connected to the lone sword. The 11th stair had the strongest energy among the red light rays. The lone sword flickered like blazing flames, and even the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord took a few steps back. Jeffrey immediately told the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord what he had seen. The last 10 stairs seemed to have much stronger energy with these black light rays. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord was not surprised at his statement. The other shore tokens connected to the last 10 stairs are in the hands of the Snake Spirit King, he answered. The young man in the cyan robe was neither surprised. He had previously heard it from his master. The power of the Four Spirits sect did not only come from the ancestry-level bloodline but also the Four Holy Pillars. The snake spirits, the bird spirits, the human spirits, and the monkey spirits each controlled a holy pillar. In the past, the holy pillars gave energy to the people of the Four Spirit sect, but not too much to the secondary worlds. The four holy pillars shined with dense vivid lights all year round, including the orange light and red light. These rays of light passed through infinite space and connected with the other shore tokens uniquely, giving the Four Spirit sect more power. The power of the ancestry-level bloodline had been very strong, but it was still limited. Because of the four holy pillars, the other shore tokens had changing abilities derived from the ancestry-level bloodline, and the threshold of them was lower compared to that of the ancestry-level bloodline. The energy of the four holy pillars came from the energy pools, the secondary worlds that spread over the main world. As the energy absorbed by the four holy pillars increased, the power of the other shore tokens also increased. The power of the other shore tokens on the highest pages of the pillars was even stronger than that of the origin-level bloodlines. Those who were qualified to merge with the other shore tokens on the highest pages of the pillars were top masters from the Four Spirit sect. The leaders of the four sects also controlled the other shore tokens of the last 10 stairs. The holy pillar you are climbing belongs to the Snake Spirit sect, and the strongest 10 other shore tokens are probably kept by the Snake Spirit King. It is said that these 10 other shore tokens control nearly 1/3 of the energy of the holy pillar, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord spoke. 1/3. Jeffrey's eyes widened. Then, isn't the Snake Spirit King able to destroy the chaos in an instant? He concluded that the energy in the holy pillar was too strong. The chaos was no match for the holy pillar. No, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord shook his head. The energy pools are almost destroyed and the power of the other shore tokens is much weaker than before. On the other hand, the chaos is a very special world, a trap carefully set up by the Snake Spirit King. It is far stronger than the ordinary secondary worlds. In the main world, the Monkey Spirit King was almost invincible. The Snake Spirit King was nothing compared to him, and both the Human Spirit King and the Bird Spirit King appeared to have no advantage against him. However, the Snake Spirit King had surprisingly pulled the other 3 kings into a lower-level world. This was the reason why the Snake Spirit King had been able to kill them back then. Chapter 3697, Holy Item. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord acquired all the necessary information about the Four Spirits sect in the main world from the other shore. But regarding what he said about the Snake Spirit King's strength, it was merely a rough estimate. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord was not thoroughly certain about it. Moreover, he was not entirely sure if the Snake Spirit King still had all those 10 other shore tokens in his possession. If the Snake Spirit King was still able to use his full strength until now, he would have already managed to defeat the Bird Spirit King long ago. These two races had been warring with each other for over hundreds of chaotic eras. One could say that they were mortal enemies. If that's the case, then I will destroy all of his other shore tokens. Jeffrey had already acknowledged the Snake Spirit King as his father's greatest enemy after the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord explained everything. He knew that these other shore tokens could be destroyed. All he needed to do was to pull them out. Jeffrey had succeeded to do that lots of times before. He accomplished this while he was climbing the pillar. If the person who owned the other shore token seemed wicked, he would immediately pull out the black stone and throw it away. He was also the one who threw away the black stones of those other shore tokens belonging to the Element Spirit civilization. However, he was eager to reach the top as soon as possible. He realized that there were too many black stones on the pillar. It would take him a couple of years to pull them all out. Therefore, he left it entirely up to his mood whether or not he would pull out certain stones. It meant that during this period of time, all sorts of strange things had been happening on the other shore. Every now and then, some people found that their other shore tokens had suddenly stopped working. Even though Jeffrey's proposal to pull out the Snake Spirit King's other shore tokens sounded a little childish, it was actually very straightforward and effective. It would be best if he succeeded in pulling them out and was able to destroy the 10 other shore tokens as well. "You are welcome to try, but you have to be extremely careful," replied the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. He was obviously concerned about Jeffrey's safety. At this moment, he felt full of regret. He should have learned more about the Four Spirits sect in the past. That way, he could have been of greater help to Jeffrey. Alas, he had already missed his chance. "Okay, here I go," Jeffrey said as soon as the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord expressed his agreement. Very carefully, he climbed onto the 10th step. Based on his previous experience, he pointed at the black light in the middle of the step. It was actually a risky move, but he had no other choice now. Entering the abstruse energy world was a kind of adventure in its own way. Boom! As soon as Jeffrey's fingertip came into contact with the black light, the scene he saw through it exploded and expanded around him. All of a sudden, he noticed a brown cloud floating slowly and steadily in the distance. Soon enough, it had entered his field of vision. Up close, Jeffrey observed that the brown cloud was spiral-shaped. Huh, a chaos cloud. Jeffrey scratched his head as he had no idea what just happened. He originally thought that all the other shore tokens should have been on the other shore. He didn't expect that the Snake Spirit King's 10th other shore token would be in the chaos. Jeffrey adjusted his visual range and saw a black bead. Much to his surprise, he found that the bead was embedded into a wall. The chaos was supposed to be empty. How could there be a wall here? Thoroughly confused, Jeffrey adjusted his line of vision once more. He tried to figure out where the wall ended. Unfortunately, the surroundings were filled with chaotic energy. All he could see was a small portion of the wall. Just as Jeffrey was adjusting his line of sight, he suddenly discovered some bulges protruding below the bead. He focused his vision closely and carefully looked at it. He was utterly shocked after he figured out what it was. It was a woman that had been embedded into the wall. The bumps were actually some parts of her body sticking out of the wall. Jeffrey pondered about how long the woman had been in there. Her face, chest, legs, and stretched arms were the only parts floating serenely outside the wall. Astonishingly, Jeffrey realized that this woman was still alive despite of her current condition. Her skin remained snow-white and full of vitality even if it had already been exposed for an indefinite amount of time. It was as though there was an abundant life force emanating from her body. Upon closer inspection, he saw that the woman's eyes were different. Her pupils were slits instead of the normal round ones. They were almost like thin crescent moons. They were not human eyes but a pair of snake eyes. This woman had remained in this restrained position for countless years. All this time, all she could do was gaze into the distance. Her state of mind had remained the same for over 1,000 chaotic eras. If she could struggle against her bonds, she would definitely break free of them. Then, she would be able to end her life as quickly as possible. Sadly, she couldn't. Aside from that, she had to stay embedded in the wall and continuously sacrifice herself for the snake. And because everything was already settled a long time ago, her struggle would be futile. Her heart had already become numb. She couldn't feel anything else in this silent void. However, she immediately felt it when Jeffrey looked at her. How could she not? She hadn't felt any other presence for such a long time. Naturally, she would notice if something changed. There was a sparkle of light in her somber gray eyes. Her crescent-shaped pupils flickered with a faint golden glow. Is there someone out there? Someone is spying on me. In order to humiliate me. Oh no, I can feel its presence. Someone is undoubtedly spying on me through the evil bead. Someone managed to climb up the pillar. There was a sudden change in the features of her beautiful face. The face that was once immutable for billions of years looked different. There was something unusual about her facial expression. Clearly, the muscles on her face hadn't moved for a very long time, so it became almost harder than steel. Therefore, cracking sounds could be heard when she tried to put on a stunned expression. She started coughing as she struggled to speak out. It sounded like her throat was full of sand. It took her some time before she finally spoke through gritted teeth. Who is it? Who is spying on me? Her voice did not seem like it came from a woman. At the very least, it did not match her beautiful face. It sounded hoarse and husky. When Jeffrey heard her talk, he became extremely curious. Where was this woman located in the vast chaos? Why had she been embedded in that wall? Most importantly, who was she? However, he could only ask these questions in his mind. By using special means, Jeffrey had been able to communicate with the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord earlier. He tried using the same method to reach out to the woman. He began to pluck the black light. Every time he would pluck the black light, his head felt as if it would explode like a firecracker. Nevertheless, he gritted his teeth and held on. This woman must have an extraordinary origin, he thought. This would be the only opportunity he had to find out who that woman was. Unfortunately, the woman merely stared obliviously at the evil bead above. She was utterly confused. She couldn't understand the way he communicated. Instead, she just said, "The holy pillars. Have they become so unstable? It seems that they would collapse at any moment." "Then it's fine. If the holy pillars collapse, then these grudges among the 4 sects would easily be solved." Actually, Jeffrey's flickering gaze had misled the woman. She thought there wasn't someone observing her, but there was something wrong with the holy pillars. When Jeffrey realized the woman didn't get it, he became a little anxious and plucked the black light faster. However, the woman still couldn't understand what he wanted to say. Communicating with her this way proved to be rather pointless. After trying for a while, Jeffrey felt a sharp pain in his head. It was as though it had been split open. Finally, he gave up. The woman discovered that the gaze on the evil bead had disappeared. Once again, her expression became stiff and impassive. She remained motionless and assumed her previous state of being. The chaos cloud that enveloped her became a little thinner. Gradually, more parts of the wall that bound her were revealed. It appears that the wall extended out of the chaos cloud and stretched endlessly towards the far distance. After leaving the black light, Jeffrey headed back and returned to the 11th step. He immediately told the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord what he had seen. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord frowned when he heard what he just said. He didn't expect that there was a wall in the chaos. Moreover, there was a beautiful woman with snake eyes embedded in it. He couldn't quite understand why such a bizarre thing existed in the chaos. Needless to say, Jeffrey didn't get an answer from the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Then without saying anything, he stood on the 9th step and touched the black light. This time, Jeffrey's gaze landed directly on the heavenly square city. There was an irregularly shaped piece of metal floating in the middle of a small room. The moment Jeffrey laid his eyes on the metal piece, the whole heavenly square city trembled violently. The Snake Spirit King suddenly opened his eyes and growled, "My holy item. Who dares spy on my holy item?" Chapter 3698, The Danger. The 10 strongest other shore tokens stored on the top of a holy pillar were referred to by the Snake Spirit sect as the holy items. The Snake Spirit King Cornelius had selected the 10 items himself and strategically ordered them to be placed in this specific location for a very important reason. If someone was spying on him now through one of these items, it meant that they had climbed up the holy pillar. "My king, may I know what happened?" Sewell asked, trying to look and sound as respectful as he could be. He was the first one to come to the Snake Spirit King, and he did not want to try his patience. The Snake Spirit King granted his request, filling him on what was happening to the holy pillar. When Sewell heard what the Snake Spirit King said, his neutral expression became somber. "We have left the main world for too long, my king. After the slaughter, many creatures might have been born there. I guess that some of them accidentally climbed up the holy pillar," Sewell said, his voice sounding worried. This only confirmed what the Snake Spirit King refused to hear. The main world was not empty. It was not dead. It was simply not prospering the way it did before. Long ago, the Snake Spirit sect had sent the members of the Element Spirit civilization into the main world to have them gather as much information about it as they could. From this mission, they discovered that there were already small races forming in the main world. Even worse, some of them were strong. In terms of size and strength, however, they were not much in comparison to the Four Spirit sect, but this did not mean they were to be discarded. After all, a threat was a threat. To think that those losers had the audacity to approach our holy pillar. "When I come back to the main world, I will tear them into 1,000 pieces, the Snake Spirit King said, each of his words laced with spite. The holy pillars were forbidden areas in the Four Spirit sect. After all, people could see many things that they had no right to know through the holy pillars. Climbing up the 4 pillars without losing life would be next to impossible for anyone, but Jeffrey had tested his luck. Before the Snake Spirit King finished his sentence, Sewell's eyes narrowed, squinting to check if what he heard matched what he would see. Inside of Sewell's thick tail was a black spiral awl, which was given to him by the Snake Spirit King himself. The awl was a holy item too. The Snake Spirit King responded to his reaction. "Did you detect something?" he asked, readying himself for the answer. Sewell switched his attention from the all to his king, nodding his head in confirmation. "Show me," the Snake Spirit King ordered Sewell. Sewell bowed his head in submission, wagging his tail to release the awl from it. The spiral awl made its way around the location, from top to bottom, from left to right, before introducing itself to the face of the Snake Spirit King. The Snake Spirit King looked at the spiral awl in front of him. Through it, he spoke to the intruder, his voice filled with anger. "This is the leader of the Snake Spirit sect. Who are you? What are you doing on our holy pillar?" As he was speaking, his beady eyes began to turn golden, and a strong spell glowed around them. When his eyes would meet another's, the latter would immediately fall to his feet, completely submitting themselves to him. Even the most stubborn person could not stand a chance. Despite being in a different world, the Snake Spirit King remained confident in his powers. It had never failed him before. With just one look, he knew he would be able to make the intruder fear. However, just as the Snake Spirit King's eyes lit up, the intruder's gaze in the spiral all disappeared. The Snake Spirit King narrowed his eyes. "The intruder is quick to react," he remarked while his eyes began to darken, losing their glow. "Such a pity, my king," Sewell said in response, genuinely disappointed in what just passed. The Snake Spirit King rolled his eyes in vexation. Right after, he summoned the other shore tokens from many places in the heavenly square city, and they moved in circles above his head. As long as the intruder touched a ray of the dark light again, he would cast the spell through his eyes immediately. Then, the intruder's mind would swell up in confusion, forgetting what he was there for in the first place. The Snake Spirit King waited and waited. However, moments passed, and there was still no negative reaction from the holy items. The intruder was not doing anything. "What a cunning lad," he commented, his patience nearing its end. He returned the holy items to their original places. He addressed his attention to Sewell and asked, "What do you think that intruder is there for? Do you think he or she is here to break the connection between the holy items and the holy pillar?" Sewell shook his head. "From what I know, no matter how hard a person tries, the connection between the holy items and the holy pillar would be impossible to break off." "Unfortunately, that's not true," the Snake Spirit King interjected. "Although the connection between the items and the holy pillar is supposedly unbreakable, if a person has enough time and the correct resources, he or she would be able to cut it all off," he continued, revealing a fit of growing anger in his expression. "After all, the deep space favors no one. The deep space favors no one." This was something the human spirit King Kincaid would always remind him. The deep space was never purposely on anyone's side. The deep space meant a great lot to the main world. Both Sheehan and Kincaid believed it to be the origin of all that existed. However, despite the supposed greatness of the deep space, it was also mysterious and unpredictable, therefore making it dangerous. No one knew what to expect from it, not even the Four Spirits sect did when it was at its peak. Most members of the Four Spirits sect believed the reason why they would rule the main world was because it was a blessing from the deep space back then. But Kincaid had a different opinion. To him, the prosperity of the Four Spirits sect had nothing to do with the deep space's favor. It was all simply blind luck. This was why the Snake Spirit King decided to take matters into his own hands. He thought that if the Four Spirits sect disappeared from the main world, more powerful races would rise and take their places. His plan was clear, thorough, and well thought out. He did what he could to achieve his vision, and all was going according to his plan. However, if there was anything he failed to take into consideration, it would be Sheehan's personality. The way the Snake Spirit King saw it, Sheehan, the Bird Spirit King, was the most restrained one among the four leaders of the Four Spirits sect. However, he did not expect him to be so stubborn. When the Snake Spirit King put an end to the Four Spirits sect, Sheehan decided to put an end to the Snake Spirit King's plan. Thinking about this bothered him deeply, having to remember how someone planned to destroy something he had spent so much time and effort on. He simply could not understand why Sheehan was so stubborn, why he could not simply let things go according to the plan. He even resisted against him after he died. "Whatever happens, we cannot let those weaklings from the main world get in our way. We have to make our move," the Snake Spirit King said, his drive for succeeding in his plans becoming fiercer. "But it is not yet time to take action," Sewell worriedly reminded the Snake Spirit King. The Snake Spirit King disagreed. "There is no better time than now. Although Sheehan is not awake, those birds are incredibly intelligent. It will only be a matter of time before they recognize the direction of our plan. For now, what we need to focus on is the Monkey Spirit King, who has already awakened from his sleep. We need to carry out our plan ahead of schedule. Tell the others," the Snake Spirit King said. If they followed their original plan, they would have to stay in the chaos for a longer period. The Snake Spirit King and his men initially didn't pay attention to the rounds of chaos. They did not take the ruling civilizations into account simply because they thought the civilizations wouldn't even be a bother. They thought they wouldn't even make a scratch in their plans. However, unexpectedly, the Bird Spirit sect became involved. Thus, the Snake Spirit King was forced to act quickly, changing his strategy. This led him into choosing the Purge way, which would lead to 0 rounds of chaos, and all went according to his expectations again. But to the agony of the Snake Spirit King, another disruption was about to happen. Jeffrey rested his back against the side of the stair. He did his best to catch his breath, while his heart attempted to steady itself. His arms and legs had become so exhausted to the point of being numb, but he had to pick himself up again. He could not allow himself to faint. When the spiral all floated in front of the Snake Spirit King's face, he had a hunch that what was to come next could not be good, and he was right. When the Snake Spirit King's eyes began to blaze with a golden light, he knew he had to look away from his direction to protect himself. In fact, he was unable to protect himself from making eye contact with the Snake Spirit King. Moments ago, he just took a step back in a panic, losing his balance. Luckily, the ray of dark light slipped through his fingers, too, which saved his life. It was indeed a life-and-death situation. That was too close. The Snake Spirit King. I just saw the Snake Spirit King. I almost died just about now. Jeffrey's thoughts came flooding into his head in heavy torrents. He needed more than a while to calm down. I'm not sure if I can continue with this. I am too weak, too unready. If Father or Master Zia were here instead of me, they would do so much better in facing the Snake Spirit King. Jeffrey thought to himself, resisting the frustration he had felt. How dare you try to take my life? Jeffrey screamed. I'll destroy your precious other shore tokens. He continued. With no hesitation, he stretched his hand out. He curled his fingers around the black stone, grabbing it. In the past, he easily removed the black stones with a single pull. However, with this stone, no matter how hard he pulled, he couldn't remove it. Damn it, he said. It was becoming more difficult with the sweat dripping down his forehead blurring his vision. He tried other methods to grab the stone, but none of them worked. As his mind and body grew more tired, it became more and more difficult to accomplish his mission. The black stair and the black stone were too difficult to deal with. After a few more tries, Jeffrey, in pure exhaustion, finally gave up. He rested his body after a long time of struggling, not daring to touch another ray of dark light. If the Snake Spirit King is around the other shore tokens, I would be in serious trouble, especially if I make eye contact with him. I can only imagine how harsh the punishment would be, he thought to himself. He decided to completely leave the dark rays of light alone and headed towards the top of the holy pillar. As he was climbing his way to the top, he couldn't help but think of the Four Spirits sect, how they built these gigantic pillars. His feet finally landed on the top of the holy pillar. When he was there, he discovered he was standing on a round platform, which measured about 10,000 feet wide. In the middle of the platform was a relief sculpture of a giant snake, which seemed almost lifelike. He took a quick look at it, only to realize that he was face to face with the relief sculpture of the Snake Spirit King. Chapter 3699, The Sky. Jeffrey took a few steps forward, carefully studying the relief sculpture on the platform. The relief of the Snake Spirit King was extremely intricate, but something caught Jeffrey's eyes. It seemed some parts of the carving were smelted, as though someone had tried to burn them. Did someone climb to the top of the pillar to destroy the relief before? The pillar was undoubtedly very solid. Jeffrey wouldn't have been able to damage it, even if he tried. Back when he was at the foot of the pillar, he had asked Zia to give it a try, but even Zia couldn't leave a mark on the pillar. Except for these strangely burnt parts, there was nothing exquisite about the relief. Jeffrey frowned in disappointment. It hadn't been easy for him to climb all this way, yet the journey seemed fruitless. At the very least, he had helped the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord connect the sword to the 11th stair. Another shore token on the 11th stair was supposedly quite decent, however it was still connected to a red light beam like before. This meant it was surely inferior compared to the other shore tokens on the last 10 stairs. If I drill a square hole here and insert the black stone in it, will it work? Jeffrey's eyes flashed excitedly as he came up with this bold idea. But he dismissed the idea just as quickly as he hatched it. The pillar was too solid. There was no possible way he'd be able to dig a hole in it. What if I asked Zia for help? It had taken him several months to climb to the top of the pillar, which meant it'd take several more months to go down. Thus, it would take him nearly a year to make a round trip. As he pondered over this, he inadvertently walked to the center of the platform, where the snake spirit king's eyes lay. Without even looking where he was going, Jeffrey accidentally stepped right on the snake spirit king's eyes. Then, the sky began to stir, as though it was unsettled. Initially, the sky of the main world was as dark as a moonless night. Whenever he looked up, the sky was always pitch black. But the instant Jeffrey stepped on the snake spirit king's eyes, he noticed a huge courtyard floating nearby. It was floating in the center of the 4 pillars. Upon a closer look, Jeffrey realized the courtyard was tethered by thick chains that glowed brightly. The glowing chains were connected to the tops of the 4 pillars. Why is there a courtyard here? Jeffrey's mouth fell open in shock. Back when he was at the foot of the pillar, he didn't notice any courtyard. But from where he stood now, it was impossible to miss. Right underneath the courtyard were 3 cone-shaped stones. It looked as though the floating, massive stones were supporting the courtyard, keeping it afloat. Jeffrey's gaze shifted from the bottom of the courtyard to its top. His eyes suddenly widened in shock. The sky. Is this the real sky of the abstruse energy world? To his surprise, the sky had changed miraculously. Instead of the pitch blackness, the sky was now a deep and 3-dimensional space. It was as though it extended infinitely, with strange yet beautiful things floating around in it. A huge, windmill-shaped object floated far away, with its wheels spinning unimaginably fast. In the distance, a shape that almost resembled a sphere glowed a deep red, almost like a sun, but it kept changing shape. In addition, there were also some fragments floating within its orbit. Everything seemed so far yet so huge. Jeffrey was in utter awe. For a long time, he stared blankly into the sky in wonder. When he finally snapped back to reality, he took a step forward. Everything disappeared in an instant. Even the courtyard was gone. Cautiously, he took a step backward, and the sky changed once more. Is this some trick of the 4 Spirits sect? Although it felt a little strange, Jeffrey's interest was definitely piqued. Once he figured out that the trick was to step on the snake spirit king's eyes, an idea flashed through his mind. What if I try climbing onto that courtyard? The courtyard was connected to the pillar he was on by a thick chain. Jeffrey could easily cross over to the courtyard through the chain. Moreover, he could check out the other 3 pillars, since the courtyard was chained to them, too. The only catch was, if he stepped away from the snake spirit king's eyes, everything would disappear. However, did they, the courtyard, the chains, and the sky, truly disappear? Or were they just invisible? After memorizing the location of the chain, Jeffrey took a deep breath and left the snake spirit king's eyes. Cautiously, he walked towards the platform's edge. He felt his way along the edge carefully, until his fingers brushed against something cold. It was a link in the chain. Each link was about 10 feet wide. Although the chain was completely invisible, Jeffrey was confident he would be able to navigate. The distance from the pillar to the courtyard was long, about half the distance between the 2 pillars. It was at least a 10-day climb to reach the courtyard. After climbing for a few hundred feet, Jeffrey looked down. He trembled slightly as he realized there was nothing under him. If he fell from such a height, there was no possible way he'd survive. Meanwhile, in the Star Crane City, Crane Blood Province, Source World, a huge stone heart was beating slowly yet energetically. The yellow Thirk lay on the throbbing stone, staring into space blankly. His once incredibly strong body was now extremely weak. Claire occupying his body was taxing enough in itself, but the price he had to pay when she was defeated after descending to the Source World was even more unimaginable. He was lucky to be alive, but now, the yellow Thirk was overcome with regret. He had chosen to join the Element Spirit Civilization. To grow in strength, but the so-called strength of the Element Spirit Civilization turned out to be bait. And the yellow Thirk fell for it. After taking the bait, he had now become the Element Spirit Civilization's puppet. Now, there was no turning back. He had absolutely no ability to resist, and was completely subject to their control. Da, 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 someone was approaching. Although the yellow Thirch's body was badly damaged, he could still acutely sense things around him. Instantly he knew that the person approaching him was the Divine Farmer. What are you doing here? The yellow Thirk asked sourly. After the battle with the Pear Hill, the Divine Farmer had actually rescued him. But secretly, the yellow Thirk loathed the Divine Farmer. It would have been better to die in battle than to continue living as a puppet. The Ice Spirit has sent a message, said the Divine Farmer calmly. The Ice Spirit were the last 3 words that the yellow Thirk wanted to hear, but he had no choice. With a sigh, he struggled to sit up. He knew that the Ice Spirit could be spying on them at any given time. What did he say? The yellow Thirk asked tiredly. Kill the evil god, the divine farmer said bluntly. The yellow Thirk laughed bitterly. How are we supposed to do that, especially in this condition? In the battle with the Pear Hill, 2 of the 3 Chaos Ancient Gods who advocated the Purge Way had perished. Othniel was the only survivor, but no one knew where he was now. How could they possibly kill the evil god after they suffered such huge losses? We have to do it. The Ice Spirit will help us. The divine farmer shrugged. He will help us. How? We still have Othniel. The Element Spirit civilization will support us, and the Ice Spirit said he will teach us a special method. There was a hint of excitement in the divine farmer's voice. What method? The blood-controlling method. It's a method to activate the bloodline Thurges, developed from outside the chaos. Chapter 3700. Everything was under control. Yellow Thirk was confused after he heard what divine farmer said. When one obtained a bloodline, it would fully belong to them. On top of that, the more one used their obtained bloodline, the more powerful their Thurge would be. That was how Yellow Thirk thought the bloodlines worked ever since he became an Eternal Realm warrior. The Ice Spirit even told him the same thing before. But now that he knew about the existence of the blood-controlling method, he thought everything he knew came into question. Master Ice Spirit didn't have the blood-controlling method before. It was given to him by a master, divine farmer told him. A master. Yellow Thirk's eyes flashed with combined intrigue and surprise. It seemed that he was right in assuming that these treacherous beings were not as simple as they seemed. There was no way such powerful and terrible creatures came from within the chaos. Another matter to also consider was the relationship between the Element Spirit civilization and the treacherous beings, but Yellow Thirk pushed this to the back of his mind for the time being. Can a master truly activate a stronger bloodline Thurge with just a blood-controlling method? He asked. Divine Farmer's words still made him doubtful. Divine Farmer merely smiled in reply. Soon enough, the blood within his body began to boil. His blood power used to be extremely fierce and violent, but now, it was incredibly gentle. In just a few moments, a figure sporting a goat head with huge horns took shape. Divine Farmer had just transformed into a goat monster. What do you intend to do? Yellow Thirk immediately became alert. In this form, Divine Farmer's strength greatly increased, but his consciousness was virtually non-existent. He essentially turned into a heartless goat monster. Was he perhaps planning to kill Yellow Thirk? A powerful aura emanated from Divine Farmer's monster form, so powerful that it was enough to disrupt rubble on the ground. To Yellow Thirk's surprise, Divine Farmer spoke, "I'm just trying to prove something to you." Can you control your goat monster body? Yellow Thirk asked in amazement. Completely, Divine Farmer replied. I can freely choose and control any of the 3 forms of transformation. Back then, Divine Farmer's transformation forms came at random and, though they were powerful, there was always a risk that he did not get the one he wanted. After cultivating the blood-controlling method, I was also able to obtain a 4th form. It consumes a lot of energy, but its strength is far more complicated than that of the first 3 forms. The elation in Divine Farmer's face was unmistakable as he made this declaration. Meanwhile, Yellow Thirk remained doubtful. Could the blood-controlling method be truly so magical? There was only one way to find out. Master Ice Spirit, will you impart such a wondrous method to me? Yellow Thirk asked hopefully. Before Divine Farmer could even open his mouth, his forehead suddenly split open to reveal an eyeball. Of course, the Ice Spirit replied. With the blood-controlling method, me and Divine Farmer will steadily grow in power. The Ice Spirit's words excited Yellow Thirk. All the regret and distress from the past few months completely disappeared in his mind. Buzz. The eyeball in the middle of Divine Farmer's forehead flickered, and soon, numerous Sanskrit words floated in front of Yellow Thirk. This is the blood-controlling method suitable for you. This battle is not related to the Pear Hill or the Finale Way. The only thing you have to do is to fight against the Black Ship, the Ice Spirit told him. Don't let me down. Yellow Thirk stared at all the Sanskrit words given to him with greed and desire. Master Ice Spirit, may I ask a question? He asked. What is it? The Ice Spirit replied. The blood-controlling method is so powerful, Yellow Thirk began. Why did you not teach it to us in advance? We wouldn't have suffered so miserably in the Battle of Pear Hill back then if you had taught us. Well, we have just been taught, too. There was a hint of dissatisfaction in the Ice Spirit's tone. The Element Spirit civilization wholeheartedly served the Snake Spirit sect, but they were not always treated as amicably as they would like. To the Snake Masters, creatures of the chaos simply weren't qualified to learn nor had the ability to grasp the blood-controlling methods. Deeming his deed done, the eyeball disappeared, and the crack that appeared in the middle of Divine Farmer's forehead closed. How long will it take to cultivate the blood-controlling method? Yellow Thirk asked Divine Farmer. Very soon, especially since we already have a good grasp on how to use our bloodline. It only took me 4 days to cultivate it, Divine Farmer answered. Once I master the blood-controlling method, I will look for the evil god. Yellow Thirk declared. This blood-controlling method gave hope to him. Up above the roaring lake province, the aforementioned evil god's body floated in the air like a leaf. Wind, he uttered as he closed his eyes. He was an image of tranquility as he floated by. Soon, however, a stronger wind blew and he found himself hurtling through the sky at an astonishing speed. Strong wind, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It wasn't long before the strong wind turned into violent gales that swept through the entire roaring lake province. The wind was strong enough to suck in the huge lakes and plow the ground into many ditches. It was a truly destructive storm. This wasn't the first time the roaring lake province was devastated by such a violent shock wave. Numerous creatures that lived near the lakes now lay either dead or injured. Those who were lucky to survive moved around the roaring lake province to try to stay far away from the danger. They couldn't leave the roaring lake province entirely since it was their home. As the storm raged, no living being in the entire roaring lake province could escape. Water and soil mixed together and formed a 10,000 feet high pile of debris. Soon enough, the ground was squeezed all over again. Countless creatures lost their voice and died instantly. This would go on for an entire hour. Afterwards, the winds finally calmed. From up above one would be able to see the extent of the damage, a graying-brown mud plain wherein countless broken limbs lay. A large hole appeared in the middle of it all wherein a huge turtle shell surfaced from the hole. Underneath this shell were numerous creatures. One of the creatures it protected was at the chaotic source realm. The sight of his race being exterminated broke this chaotic source realm warrior's heart, and his other sure token, the sacred earth armor, could only save a few people. You dodged my storm, the evil god remarked with indifference as he floated down. Your strength is not too shabby. To everyone's combined surprise and horror, the evil god did not move his mouth. Rather his voice emanated from the earth itself. His words could be heard from within and across the roaring lake province itself. It was like he suddenly became the land's ruler. Anger erupted from the chaotic source realm warrior's eyes when he heard this. With the turtle shell on his head, he made a mad dash towards the evil god and roared, "Why? Why did you destroy our roaring lake province?" The evil god simply raised his hand and the turtle shell atop the chaotic source realm warrior's head shattered with a bang. I want to correct your words, the evil god told him. This is not your roaring lake province, but mine. I'll kill you. The evil god's insensitive words pushed the chaotic source realm warrior to the limit. He was determined to burn his other sure token just to fight against this malicious character. Unfortunately, he soon discovered that even if he maxed out his potential, he still couldn't move. It's not just the roaring lake province, the evil god began, but everything in the source world. The flowers, the trees, the buildings and even your lives all belong to me now. Everything is under my control and I can do everything that I want. Clap. Despite his best efforts to burn through his other sure token, the chaotic source realm warrior still turned into blood mist and completely disappeared from the world.